We are racing in the Formula Winter Series for the second weekend. 1.3 seconds to left. It does get a mighty run outside of the final corner. Danny Sufi loses it into the first corner. We are underway and racing in the GT Winter Series, but already. Welcome along to the Circuito Estoril. It is round 2 of the GEDLICH Racing Winter Series. The GTs and the GT4s are back, but we begin proceedings with the first event for the Formula Winter Series. They are at Estoril for the first time. There's been a lot of hype among the young drivers to be at the venue where Ayrton Senna claimed his first win in Formula 1 some 40 years ago. Yes, somehow the youngsters still know this information. It is very exciting to be back with you in the paddock for this, the second weekend of the season. We've got 2 days of racing to bring you. It was almost dry here at Estoril for practically the first time all weekend about half an hour ago. But as you can see, the rain has started again. This first race of the day is going to be started under safety car conditions. Myself, Adam Weller, in the commentary box once again with Andy McEwen, and Izzy Browning will be down in the pits and indeed, of course, on the grids once the cars roll in her direction. This circuit has been a cornerstone of Portuguese motorsport, the traditional home of Portuguese motorsport since 1972. 4.182 kilometers in length, just under 2.6 miles and 13 corners, some of which present a mighty challenge in the slick conditions, in the dry conditions. In this weather, there's going to be a lot of unexplored territory, and especially in the Formula Grid, that is going to be a big story because they've had very few laps, really, of uninterrupted running across the practice sessions on Thursday, Friday, and this morning. The weather forecast from here on out looks tentatively promising, but we've been watching the skies all weekend and they do seem to choose what they do next at will. Andy, great to have you back with us once again for this one. We've been talking about it. Finally, the formulas are here. Capacity grid over 30 ready to take the start, and some really interesting names up and down the field.
Absolutely, up and down the field being absolutely the right way to describe it as well, because it was a very, very bizarre qualifying session that we witnessed earlier on in the day. 3 red flags in one of the qualifying sessions, and that meant that no one really got into a proper rhythm. Quite a lot of drivers only setting one proper representative lap all through the session, and that has led to a jumbled grid, quite significantly jumbled grid actually. There are quite a few drivers out of position at both ends of the grid, and I think that should guarantee us a pretty lively race. I should point out as well, I'm not convinced the track was this wet for that qualifying session either, so the fact that that was so chaotic possibly tells us what we should be expecting in first 30-minute +1 lap race of the day. But yeah, big grid, hugely talented grid. We said this last year, we say this every year, but if you want to know who's going to be making big strides in single-seat racing, perhaps, in fact, more than likely, right up to and including Formula 1, this is a good grid to take a proper long look at, isn't it?
Absolutely right. Of course, our rookie champ from last year, Finn McLaughlin, he went on to win the British F4 Championship in the summer. He's now locked himself into a seat for the FIA Formula 3 Championship in 2026, and we wish him all the luck with that. We've got a lot of teams here back from last year. We have one team returning from 2024, and that is Rodin Motorsport. Rodin, based just down the road from me, up a little bit further north in Hampshire, actually. But the team Kiwi owned, of course, has a great lineage dating back through past identities over many, many decades of racing, and they're starting on the right foot because their young driver, Dries van Langendonk, the McLaren Development Program driver in the distinct papaya colours, will be at the front of the field, and it is, in fact, a front row lockout because Alfie Slater is there in P2 for them as well. So just about the perfect start to Rodin's second season in the Formula Winter Series and their return after 2 years away.
Indeed so, yes, and some names that British motor racing fans amongst you will definitely recognise from junior racing categories over there, making their first step into international competition. But Alfie Slater, one of those, of course, fresh out of a couple of years of Ginetta Junior Racing, making his first single-seater start this weekend. Of course, not the only one in that camp, is he, though, because one Rocco Coronel, the dominant Ginetta Junior champion last year, is also on the grid, although some way further back. Speaking of the grid, we're going to be able to head down there in a moment or two to hear from the drivers, courtesy of Izzy Browning.
Well, yes, indeed. Welcome down to the grid for the first time in the 2026 Formula Winter Series. We're rather battling the elements down here. As Andy and Adam have already said, it's sort of been on-off rain and torrential rain all weekend. But what I'm keen to do is speak to drivers as soon as possible. So we are going to dive in with the pole sitter, and that is going to be Dries van Langendonk. Dries, I mean, not many people got a lap in qualifying, but you did. This is the perfect way to start the year.
Yeah, both qualities were really good. The team, the pace, everything was coming together. I've been really quick over the weekend, so yeah, to put it on pole was really good. And yeah, really happy. It was also quite a big margin in Q1, so yeah, really happy.
What's it going to take to convert it? How tricky are things out there?
Well, first of all, keep on the track because it's rained quite a lot. But I mean, yeah, just we're gonna see how it goes. Just do the best I can.
Best of luck out there. Thanks for speaking to us. Right, we're going to continue back because it is, as Adam and Andy have said, an all-road-in front row with the number 77 of Alfie Slater alongside. Alfie, welcome to the Formula Winter Series grid. Great to have you. I mean, it's a teammate alongside you. You're going to want to keep things clean, but I imagine you're also going to want the lead.
Yeah, I mean, obviously everyone wants to win, but there's a sacrifice that maybe it's better to just come across the line in second and crash and finish at the back. So there's going to have to be some sort of teamwork, but yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Best of luck out there. Thanks for speaking to us. We're going to continue back because I am keen to speak to, as I say, as many drivers as possible. Teams and mechanics now leaving the grid, and the rain is coming down heavy now. I want to come and speak to P3 though, because that's Alicia Palmovsky. Fantastic qualifying session from her. Alicia, I mean, the weather's coming down pretty hard, but what a fantastic way to start the year for you.
Yeah, it's been a crazy weekend, to be honest, in total. I mean, the qualifying session, we only did 1 or 2 flying laps, but we managed to deliver a decent lap when it mattered. So, as for now, we thought it was going to be a dry race, and it's absolutely downpoured. So, we don't really know what to expect, but we'll just try and learn. That's the main thing.
Yeah, it's going to be so tricky out there. Where can you make the moves on this track?
We're going to find out. I don't want to give away all my secrets, but no, I think I really just want to learn. We're lacking a little bit of pace as a team in the wet conditions for various different reasons, but I'll just try and do a good job and learn.
Best of luck. Thanks for speaking to us. Right, I mean, I would like an umbrella that big, actually, I think, because it is really quite hammering it down now. And as Alicia says, they're going to find out where they can make the moves. It is going to be a super, super tricky race. Theo Borenstein then is on P4. He is a returner to the Formula Winter Series grid. And one thing to say about this grid is there are many drivers making their first ever single-seater starts. And this is rather a baptism of fire, isn't it? I mean, it's going to be tricky, tricky conditions. One of those drivers making his debut is Levi on alongside, and yeah, this is going to be a tricky one, boys. I can't imagine that it is going to be easy for any of those drivers, but we'll find out now as the race begins.
So then, tricky conditions. We will be starting this race under safety car as soon as these cars roll on the formation lap. The 30 minutes plus 1 lap will begin. In fact, they've just started rolling. So officially, the race is underway, and it will be Dries van Langendonk on pole position alongside his teammate at Rodin Motorsport, Alfie Slater, joining him on that front row. Alicia Palmowski with her best start in the Formula Winter Series from 3rd on the grid, alongside another returnee, Theo Borenstein of Jense Motorsport, looking to make an impact from 4th position. P5, yet another driver from Jense, Levi Arn, who comes in with a lot of confidence and a lot of speed. He's alongside Alexander Ruter for Van Amersfoort Racing, the first of the VAR cars on the grid. Ari Bansel is next for Us Racing alongside Noah Killian, and all champions row number 4 of the grid. Row number 5 is Philip Rice alongside Ian Kraling, AKM and Us Racing drivers respectively. Good to see an AKM car up there in the top 10. Vittorio Orsini, another AKM driver, alongside the lone Renault Motorsport team entry of Thomas Radokas, the Lithuanian driver. Ginevra Panzeri in 13th, alongside Victor Polson in 14th position, and all AS row number 7. Maximilian Kammerlander, I think his last name's been cut off there unfortunately, the Cram Motorsport competitor, alongside Ludovico Busso on row number 8. Row 9 is Rocco Coronel, who didn't get a lap in during Q1 unfortunately. Very few drivers actually got competitive laps on the board. Thomas Behrman alongside him on row 9. Expect both of those drivers to work their way up the field. Row 10 of the order is Ethan Lennon alongside Oscar Repetto, the 32 and the number 11 cars respectively. Row 11 is Marcus Silkunas of Jense Motorsport alongside Roman Kamyab of Us Racing. Row number 13 is... row number 12, I should say, is Alexander Savinkov for Us Racing alongside Chiara Batig for Campos. Great to see Chiara with us, having only done about 10 races so far in her young career. Van Amersfoort Racing's Pedro Lima is next alongside Samuel Ifrid, 25th and 26th positions. Row 14, Abdullah Kamil and Georgi Zasov on row 14. Row 15, Andre Rodriguez alongside Rafaela Ferreira, 29th and 30th places. And then at the back of this field, not quite at capacity, we're one shy, but Matilda Patz of Matilda Racing on the 16th and final row. Of course, she has recently been confirmed to be joining the Aston Martin ranks as the F1 Academy representative for them in 2026, the year that we are now in, as I have to continually remind myself. As you can see, these conditions are getting considerably worse, almost second on second right now. There's a telltale sign here in this commentary box where we have the mountains overlooking the final corner. If you can't see them, things aren't going well from a weather perspective. I can tell you, I cannot see them. You saw there the graphic weather conditions. It is very much raining, and the temps aren't particularly high either. So we are going to, I think, struggle to get this circuit dry, even if the rainfall does relent. We've had a notification to say that car 20 has been noted for overtaking under safety car. Now that is Theo Borenstein in 4th position. That would not be the start to the season that he would want, especially from such a strong position. He would not want to give that away due to a procedural issue.
No, indeed so, although I'm sure he will argue that it's visibility perhaps that led to that, because as you can see, even at these very low speeds, the spray is fairly considerable, isn't it? The standing water is an issue. It's an older circuit, doesn't necessarily drain quite as well as some others, and there are certain areas already, Adam, where there is quite a lot of standing water on the track.
But the point I was going to make is that when they were driving through turn 12 and turn 13 there, we saw how heavy the rainfall was. Down at the other end of the main straight at turn 1, it was a little bit of sunshine protruding onto the circuit, so it does seem very much as if some parts of this track have wildly different weather than others right now, although all, of course, are rather sopping wet at this juncture. That is something to point out, that the circuit's main straight, and I will shout out Izzy for this statistic. She pointed this one out, that it's a quarter of the length of the track, just the main straight. So it's not really a surprise that in certain instances the weather is different at one end from the other. Alicia Palmowski from 3rd on the grid. That's a really interesting little story there, particularly because she is fond of the rain. She was quick in the rain through Thursday and Friday practice, so we'll have to see what she can do from that position. In qualifying, Dries van Langendonk was some 1.8 seconds quicker than Alfie Slater in P2, but that is absolutely not representative because there was red flag after red flag after red flag in that qualifying session. Realistically, all we can take away from that session is, well, the actual grid positions that it's generated, and only about half the grid actually got to that point. Incidentally, the second race for Formula Winter Series, the grid is typically determined by the second fastest times from Q1. Only 3 drivers actually got second fastest times in Q1, which should tell you everything you need to know. But incidentally, that does mean those 3 drivers will be starting positions 1 through 3 in the second race, and that means that Alicia Palmowski will have pole alongside Philip Rice for the second race, and then they will use the fastest laps from this race ongoing to determine P4 through 31. So we'll keep an eye on that as well, because that could be an interesting story for someone like Dries van Langendonk. Even if he stays out at the front of the field, he's going to want to get a quick lap in there somewhere to try and get himself as high up the pack as possible. No indication that the safety car is coming in on this lap, so we are going to continue around behind the safety car this time around. The new for 2026 GEDLICH Racing safety car, BMW M4 G80 Touring Edition. That's the one I'd probably have. And that will be leading them around for at least one more lap. These kind of conditions, though, really hair-raising to see. I mean, it is so much spray coming from these cars, and I think a little bit of discretion from race control is certainly an understandable thing.
Well, and certainly because, as we mentioned, for a lot of these drivers, it's their first ever race in this kind of car, so really don't want to be throwing them straight in at the deep end, do we? Which it quite literally will feel like out there at the moment. A lot of standing water, as we said, a lot of spray. And to your point, when we do go racing, you know, trying to set a quick lap time with that grid for later in the weekend in mind is going to be very hard to do if you're anything other than the race leader, one would imagine. So big advantage to Dries van Langendonk when we do go racing. If he can stay out in front, of course, he hopefully should have the best of the visibility. You can see the leaden skies off in the distance. That is where the mountain should be,
yes.
Or is, we believe, behind the clouds. Very much not in view at the moment. It's not a cold day necessarily, and low teens, the air temperature. The sun, when it's out, has been quite warm. So once the rain has passed through fully, which for the time being it looks as though it has stopped, fingers crossed, track conditions should start to improve. And again, to that point on fastest lap times, later in the race, the better the conditions get, that's when the sweet spot's going to be for setting a quick time.
Now, we've kind of made allusions to the hype around Dries van Langendonk already in this broadcast. Of course, the fact that anyone at F4 level basically comes in with the F1 approval, or approval of an F1 team, that kind of tells you all you need to know. But his karting record really quite stellar. Won the FIA Karting World Championship in the OK Junior division back in 2023, and then did the same in OK Junior in the European Championship in 2024. He's also now had 3 rounds of F4 competition, joined the back half of the British F4 season, and won a race on his first weekend. I think it was the second race of the weekend that he won. He was also on pole in his first ever F4 qualifying session. So Dries so far has proven to be worth the hype that he is getting from those who keep an eye on the single-seater scene, and also quite a born racer. He was born, well, not born, but he lived effectively a stone's throw from the gates of the Circuit Zolder, which means he probably knows the rain quite well, with no disrespect to that particular region of Belgium. But also he's been around race cars effectively from day one. I was rather hoping we could say that we'd go back to racing, or we would go to racing for the first time this lap, but the heavens have opened again at the Gancho chicane, and it looks like we're going to do at least one more lap behind the safety car.
Yes, that's the word from race control. One more lap and then restart, they said, but I think that was just before this latest deluge arrived and gave the circuit another soaking. You can really see there the lines being cut through the surface water. And these wet tyres, they are very, very effective. They will clear the water reasonably well, but often, especially in single-seater racing, I think it isn't always about the grip levels, that's not necessarily the reason for delaying the start. It's visibility, isn't it? That spray would concern me if I were out there in one of those cars. I'm sure these being youngsters, they're all revved up and raring to go, and they're like, no, we're okay, you can let us go racing, but sometimes someone has to be sensible, don't they, and make the right call.
I will say someone who I know will want to get underway is, in fact, Alfie Slater in P2. Alfie and I had a bit of a chat yesterday, and he's like, no, I love the rain. Give me more rain. He's very confident in the wet conditions. He's confident in general. His mission statement to me when I asked, are you going for the rookie title, was, no, I'm going for the overall title. Alfie is coming in with a great deal of confidence. Of course, he's got 2 years of racing already under his belt in cars, albeit not in single-seaters, in the Ginetta Junior Championship. And he's another one of those drivers that's kind of grown up around racing, as we see the conditions seemingly arching towards getting worse again. However, yeah, he has been really a huge part of racing all his life, because obviously, yes, his older brother Freddie is a racer, but also his father used to race, and his godfather is Mark Sumpter, who's very familiar to the UK GT racing scene and is one of the leading Porsche specialists in the United Kingdom through the Paragon company. So Alfie Slater has probably hit a paddock in his first weeks of life, if not first month, and has been a part of it ever since.
Yeah, really impressive youngster. Really did feel like he was starting to make big steps forward last year in his second Ginetta Junior campaign. 3 race wins over the course of 2025, and that was a hard thing to do last year in Ginetta Juniors, yes, because there was another driver who did most of the winning, certainly in the first half of the year anyway, Rocco Coronel, who utterly dominated the Ginetta Junior Championship, perhaps the most dominant champion that series has ever had. It was certainly up there, and to beat Rocco in a straight price is not an easy thing to do. Now, sadly, as you'll see at the top left-hand corner of your screen, the time has stopped ticking down, and that's because the red flag has been thrown, so we never really got underway. The race has technically run 3 laps, which might be of some significance if they don't restart it, I suppose. 3 laps completed, but the track conditions worsening, and they were already pretty dicey, so race control making the decision to hit the pause button for now.
Now, I don't see how this happened, but Tia Borenstein, who was meant to be 4th on the grid, is running around in 22nd at the moment. So I'm not quite sure how that came to be. I'm just going to check the published grid sheet and see if it stays. Yes, it states that Borenstein was meant to be 4th, as did our TV graphics, but he is down in 22nd place, so he may have had an off, either off camera or at least unsighted to my eye. That is, again, not the start that he would have wanted, but that does hand 4th position over to another Jensa competitor, Levian, who himself came across incredibly confident when I spoke to him. Understated confidence, I will say, not an excess of braggadocio, but he seemed very gently confident in what he could do in the car. He seemed like someone who'd done a lot more racing than he had in actuality, which is always what you want to see from a youngster. The number 15 then pulling into the pits. The red flag procedure starts from here, and hopefully the rain starts to ease off at some point. We've been rather afraid of what the forecast was going to inflict on this particular weekend for a while. We've known it was going to be a wet one, and Sunday arguably looking a bit more sketchy than Saturday from that perspective, but we will of course endeavour to do everything we can to get this race properly started as soon as possible. But for now, Dries van Langendonk is the first to pull up in the fast lane of the pits. Red flag conditions, certainly not the start that we wanted to this weekend, or indeed the 2026 Formula Winter Series.
No, not at all, but it is, I think, the right decision, isn't it? It was getting very, very wet out there, and as we had discussed, even behind safety car, perhaps it was starting to catch 1 or 2 drivers out. So you can imagine if it's that treacherous at those speeds, really releasing them at full racing speed was not going to be a sensible call. The best thing we can hope for, really, is that this weather moves through quite quickly. Now, it's one of the few occasions where having a weather warning in the local area for strong wind is not necessarily a bad thing. That's exactly what we have in this part of Portugal this weekend, and certainly down by the coast, only about a 5 or 10 minute drive away, the wind is really whipping in, and as I said, leading to an actual weather warning in the area. Hopefully that wind might blow this weather front through a little bit more quickly, and once it passes through, I'm sure the track will then start to dry. But what that means for this Formula Winter Series race awaits to be seen.
Yeah, no, exactly right. So then, we see the umbrellas popping up over the drivers. Protect your asset at all costs. Don't want to flood the cockpit of this Tatus T421. And I was having this conversation maybe Thursday, I think, in the paddock. Rather remarkable that this has been the current F4 car now for 5 years. That doesn't quite feel right, does it?
No, and things seem to constantly change, don't they, in the single-seater world? But yes, this it's a great car. It creates good racing, which we as neutrals enjoy. But of course, for the drivers, it's just enough of a handful that they're learning something, but not too unmanageable, and obviously all absolutely equal. So letting the driver really do the talking and stand out for themselves. We're getting notification on the timing screen now that the race will restart behind the safety car at 2:30. So that's 9 minutes, 10 minutes away from now. So, well, race control obviously saw this sunshine on its way, which has now broken through the clouds, and they're hoping within 10 minutes or so we'll be good to go.
Yeah, that is great news. And while we await some more information from Race Control, we will lean on some of the footage that we've built up over the course of this weekend, or the precursor to this weekend in testing. I spoke to Yenza Motorsports' Levi Arn, who we referenced a little bit earlier on. Let's hear what he had to say. We are talking now to Levi Arn of the Yenza Motorsport team. I must thank you, actually, immediately, Levi, because usually I ask people what their goals are, but you've said publicly, I want to be the best rookie this year. How are you feeling about that goal?
Well, we've trained a lot this year. I think it's achievable, and that's what I want to give the team. And I'm not here for being second or any other place I want to win. And I think to be the best rookie is now the best goal I can have.
And of course, you have come up in Swiss karting, like a lot of your teammates as well. So you know the guys, but you also know that you are capable of winning championships. As you move into single-seaters, how much confidence does that give you?
Of course, it's a completely other league, but I have the confidence to win and to compete on this level.
That's excellent. And your first time here at Estoril, I imagine these are your first laps on the circuit over the last couple of days. How's it been so far?
I really like the track. I've done a lot of laps on a sim, of course, but in real life, of course, it's a complete other feeling. But I really, really like this track.
Have you got a sim set up at home, do you?
Yeah, I have one, and I really play a lot with it.
Right. What's your platform of choice? Which are you using?
Assetto Corsa.
Assetto Corsa.
Yeah.
Excellent. And do you sometimes pick that over homework at school?
Yeah, always. I'm doing no homework. I just did a sim.
Excellent. So obviously you've made that clear. To be top rookie is one of your big goals. I guess for this first round, is it getting some points, getting some top 10 finishes? Is that what you're looking at?
Yes, absolutely. I think today we didn't do a lot of laps, but still we saw what we can do, and it's absolutely possible.
And I think it's going to be a relevant question this weekend. Do you like the rain?
Yes, I really like the rain. Also in karting, I've always loved it, so also here in F4 I really like it.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to seeing how you go this weekend. Thanks for chatting to us, and have a good one.
Thank you very much.
Nexano, on the path to becoming the world's largest independent business community. We connect entrepreneurs, experts, and decision makers across industries and across borders. In our digital ecosystem, people share knowledge, learn from each other, and grow together. Companies and talents gain access to relevant contacts, resources, and innovative projects. Our community stands for transparency, trust, and sustainable economic success. We create space for inspiration, collaboration, and new business models. Nexano, shaping the future of business networking, global, digital, and accessible to everyone.
Welcome down to the pit lane. We are, of course, under red flag at the moment, but the race set to get underway in just a few minutes. I've come down to speak to Alfie Slater. We spoke to him on the grid, but just to get a bit of a read on the conditions, Alfie, tell us how it's looking out there. I mean, you're P2, so you've got quite a few cars behind you, but I understand it's still not that great for visibility.
Yeah, I mean, I only have one car in front of me, and the spray is still pretty bad, so I can imagine how bad it would be if I was a couple more cars behind. So it is probably quite dangerous for them, but it's pretty okay for me, and I'd love to go racing.
Yeah, Adam, the commentator, was saying he had a chat with you yesterday, and you were pretty up for weather like this, being British.
Yeah, we're here to race, so I reckon we go racing. I enjoy the rain, and I know I've got the pace, so it should be good fun.
All right, good luck when it gets restarted, which is going to happen in 3 minutes' time, boys.
Yeah, it's coming down the pike quite quickly, the resumption of at least cars rolling, and hopefully racing won't be too far thereafter. Now, the clock has continued ticking on our timing screens here at the track, but it did stop, I think, on the feed that we get the information for from the graphics. So TBC quite how much of this race is going to be left when we do roll again, but that's, again, a statement of intent from Alfie Slater, and of course we heard it from Levian as well. He said, I love the rain, I want more rain conditions, if anything. So there's a few drivers here, and I'd count Alicia Palmovsky in that as well. Drivers who are quite keen, actually, to show what they can do in these kind of conditions.
Yes, absolutely so. And it is an opportunity, isn't it, for drivers to not only get the season off to a really good start, but, you know, really promote themselves, sell themselves to any teams watching out there. And if they do particularly shine in the wet, then yes, they're going to be itching to get circulating at full speed. Rain expected in 1 minute. That is not great news, since we are a minute and a half away, allegedly, from cars rolling back out onto the circuit again. Time will be added. Remaining racing time, 12 minutes plus 1 lap. So okay, it is going to be a shortened race, but we will still get a handful of laps in, but not that many if we are behind safety car for potentially another 2 or 3 of those laps.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I think by the letter of the law, we would be able to release the cars after 1 lap behind safety car from a red. There is a reason I'm not in race control, but I think that is how that one works. So hopefully we can get at least 1 or 2 laps in, because again, I think there's a lot of drivers here who would like the opportunity. And I should say, I mean, I've mentioned Alfie, Alicia, and Levy as 3 drivers who I think would thrive in the rain. That is not to write off Dries van Langendonk as well. He certainly has his fair share of successes on difficult days in the office from a grip perspective. Now, further down the grid, we've got some interesting names kind of dotted around that we've seen before, albeit with new teams. We've got Thomas Behrman in 17th position as of this moment. Of course, he's racing with Van Amersfoort. We are expected to see him across the year with Van Amersfoort Racing, looking at doing the Italian F4 Championship. So that's an interesting new combination. Of course, he was here last year competing against Van Amersfoort Racing for High Tech, and he kind of came on strong towards the end of the season, got his first podium overall, at least, in Barcelona, and was also runner-up to Finn McLaughlin in terms of the rookie standings in 2025 here in the Formula Winter Series, and certainly he's looking to try and challenge for the title this year, but he was one of many drivers caught out by the errant conditions in qualifying earlier on today. Didn't manage to get a lap in at all in Q1 owing to the sheer number of red flags. The cars are rolling once again then. 12 minutes plus 1 lap left to go, now at 11 minutes and 25 plus 1 lap to go. Let's see then how long it takes us to release these cars. Everyone will be keeping a keen eye on the radars and indeed the condition. The race control will be keeping a keen eye on the amount of spray that these cars are kicking up through some of the straight, slightly faster sections, like here coming out of Curve VIP. We're currently looking at the 4th corner of the lap. You then have that fast kink, of course, at turn 5 on the run down to Parabolica Interior, turn number 6. And the amount of spray at a section like that will be a key determiner as to if and when we get this race back underway. But looking at the conditions right now, Andy, dare I say it, it looks somewhat raceable, but then you see those lakes coming out of the traction zone at Curve VIP, and you second guess yourself. It kind of varies almost shot to shot whether it looks raceable.
Well, yeah, I'm with you. The first sector looks okay, doesn't it? But it was this bit of the circuit where the rain seemed to be at its heaviest for the longest, and that bit of standing water, quite a substantial bit of standing water, just through the kink at turn 5 would particularly concern me. That's one of the fastest parts of the circuit, yeah, you do not want to be aquaplaning off the road there. There is a little runoff area, but really not a huge amount. So drivers will be assessing the situation. Race control will be as well. I suspect we'll get at least one more lap behind the safety car after this one, and then see where we're at. But as you said, time has started ticking down, so 10 minutes plus 1 lap. If and when we do go racing, the drivers won't have a huge amount of time to actually do anything with that, and that again all plays into the hands of those towards the pointy end of the grid. Dries van Langendonk in particular, your pole sitter, but for the likes of Rocco Coronel and Thomas Behrman and all of those drivers that we've just been mentioning who are a lot further down the order, this really is not what they wanted to see.
Yeah, there you can see Rocco Coronel just in the middle of that previous shot in one of what is 4 Red Bull liveried cars on the grid, which means our job is twice as hard as F1 if you really think about it. Yeah, great to see so many representatives from the Red Bull junior team, or indeed the Red Bull F1 Academy setup. And then of course we do have that McLaren development driver in the form of Dries van Langendonk as well, and plenty of other prospects who I think teams will be keeping an eye on going forward further up the food chain to see whether they get invited into the fold. No indication that the safety car is going to come in this lap, so we tap our foot impatiently to see if we get racing next time by. It will be a pretty sharp dash for the cash if we do go at about 5 minutes left, which is what we'd be looking at if the safety car pulls in a lap from now.
Yes, I suspect so. I am cautiously optimistic, though. It does look as though the track conditions have improved quite quickly, haven't they? Quicker, perhaps, than I gave the circuit credit for earlier on. There are certain areas that will be a challenge, yes, this area we're approaching now, the braking zone for turn 1, notoriously tricky in the wet is this braking zone for turn 1. We've already mentioned how long that straight is, the speeds that the cars are hitting when they do get to that braking zone. It's downhill, it's bumpy, it's slippery, and then you throw a river across the circuit, and that does not make it any easier.
Well, I once asked someone in a GT race where the braking zone actually was, or where the braking point was for turn 1, and he just looked at me and went, variable. I'm like, oh, okay. based on wind conditions, based on whether you're in a slipstream, it seems to vary wildly. A little bit of wildlife there, deciding to get a few seconds on camera, hopefully not at too much expense to their own well-being. But Dries van Langendonk and Alfie Slater continue to lead the field around them. Just to run you through the top 10 order, yes, we kind of did it at the start of the race. It is Dries van Langendonk and Alfie Slater 1-2 for Rodin, Campos Racing's Alicia Palmovsky in third and leading among the female trophy competitors, and then Levian in fourth place. Ironically, 3 of those 4 at the top are also rookies, so the first non-rookie driver is Alexander Ruter in P5 ahead of Ari Bansel in 6th position, Noah Killian in 7th place, Philippe Rice in 8th position, 4th among the rookie class there, and then Us Racing's Ian Kraling and Vittorio Orsini bringing us down to 10th position. Safety car is going to come in at this lap, Andy, so we are going to get some racing in this first attempt of the weekend for the Formula Winter Series, and it will of course be a single file rolling start. What are you thinking? I think it's going to be an interesting situation.
Well, yes. I mean, we've been saying what an advantage Dries van Langendonk has being out in front. He's got a clear view. He doesn't have any spray. Of course, he's also the first driver to have to spot his braking point into turn 1. Those behind, if they can see him, can perhaps gauge from his car and what he does and react to that. So I think if he can survive that opening lap without making too many mistakes, he's definitely in a strong position. But that, I fear, will be easier said than done.
Yeah, no, it's not an easy task that Dries van Langendonk has been presented with. It's not an easy task for any of the 30 drivers that are on the circuit. Abdullah Kamil is in the pits, so we are down 1 car. The 99 AKM Motorsport entry for the Saudi racer is not out on the track, but the other 30 are, and it will be Dries van Langendonk that controls them from this point onwards. Alfie Slater will be keen to try and get one over on his teammate at the very first opportunity, but van Langendonk there starting early, and I think starting a little bit before anyone else expected, so we are powering around the Parabolica Ayrton Senna to start racing conditions formally. The green flag will be waving as van Langendonk goes underneath the gantry, and we are in racing conditions. Will it be a clean run to that first corner for van Langendonk? There is a lot of standing water there right at the braking point. He gets himself starting to stop on the way into the first corner, and indeed makes it through cleanly. Slater second, Palmovsky third, then it's Arn in fourth place, and I think was that Ruter and Bansel getting into it with each other. They're side by side at turn 2, and they collide, and that's Bansel into the gravel, that's Ruter into the gravel, the second corner, and unfortunately already a bit of a moment between 2 of our drivers.
Yeah, Ari Bansel was very late on the brakes into turn 1, I noticed, and fishtailing around the outside, but I think got good traction off the corner. That led to the side-by-side situation, but sadly they haven't made it through the next turn. 32 car going slowly, and I fear about to stop at the end of the main straight. So this is now, what, 3 cars, 4 cars potentially in dangerous positions. Who's that?
Could be Philippe Rice. It was one of the AKM cars, and it was one of the ones that was further up the field.
Oh, my word.
Oh, and there's all sorts going on. That's the 53 car going off the circuit, Pedro Lima, the 37 as well. Oh, goodness, there's at least 5, maybe 6 cars. That was Victor Poulsen, the one we saw most recently in the safety car. Unsurprisingly, has been called. Yellow flags at turns 1 through 3. Now, the other car that we saw in amongst all of that was the 32 Rodin entry of Ethan Lennon. So Ethan Lennon has also had a problem seemingly before he even got to the first corner. But we expected fireworks. Frankly, so many of these drivers have struggled to have a clean lap through practice even, so it was always a heavy expectation on their shoulders to make it through these early stages without an issue, and sure enough, unfortunately, an issue is exactly what we've had.
Well, and it's a vicious circle, isn't it? You mentioned that they've not had a huge amount of running because of interruptions to previous sessions. because people kept falling off the circuit, but of course they keep falling off the circuit because they're not getting any running and they can't get into a rhythm.
You're going to spiral.
It's exactly, you can see where I was going with this. So it is a challenge. It's one of those days where I'm quite happy to be sitting in a nice, warm, dry commentary box and not out there on the racetrack, because these are not particularly welcoming conditions, are they?
They are not. Now, Philip Rice actually has come through in 7th position, so I think I may have led us slightly astray there with which AKM car that was off the circuit. Maybe it was Vittorio Orsini, because he dropped quite a way down to 18th overall. So Vittorio Orsini may have been the responsible party coming out of Curva VIP on the gravel. But there you see Ethan Lennon with the unfortunate stop there at the approach of the first corner. He turned 15 years old on Thursday, celebrated his birthday in the paddock and indeed by running laps here at the Circuito Estoril, which he was delighted with. And actually I spoke to Ethan's mum, and his elder brother has a jiu-jitsu tournament. I think it was jiu-jitsu. It was a martial art, and that is the, I think, European Championships 30 minutes down the road.
Oh, really?
So quite the weekend for the Lennon family, the South African family, and great to see Ethan moving up to cars, but unfortunately not the start to that phase of his career that he'd have wanted.
No, indeed not. Not even making it to the first corner, unfortunately. That looks more mechanical issue than driver issue, I have to say, but certainly further around the lap there was quite a lot going on. So highly likely then, in fact I'd say a near certainty, that this race is now going to finish behind the safety car. So I said that Dries van Langendonk just needed to survive the first lap. In reality, he actually only had to survive the first 5 or 6 corners, because from that point on the yellow flags were out, safety car boards were shown, and everything slowed down anyway. So Dries, I think, will be rather pleased with how this race has gone. And a rookie win, an overall win, some good points on the board. Levian up into 3rd position as well. I don't think I spotted when or where that happened, but Alicia Palmowski off the podium, unfortunately, and now likely won't get an opportunity to do anything about that.
So 26 cars made it across the line at the conclusion of that most of the lap of racing. Alexander Ruta, Ari Bansel, Victor Poulsen and Ethan Lennon did not. Other droppers through the field, of course, we saw Pedro Lima rally crossing. We covered that Alicia Palmowski dropped down to 4th place, and that Vittorio Orsini also dropped down to 18th. But other than that, the order seems to have remained somewhat static. Just a lot of people gaining where others have ended up in the gravel. Rocco Coronel up to 12th position and Thomas Behrman up to 11th. So they've both done some gaining through the field. And there are some names that I wasn't necessarily expecting to be in a point-scoring position in the first race of the season. Yes, the circumstances are certainly not representative of your average motor race, but guys like Philip Rice and Thomas Rodokas and Ludovico Busso even, I wasn't necessarily expecting in the top 10. Ginevra Panzeri as well. Quite a few drivers who are either brand new or have come in from a different team and are trying to figure out a new setup, and here they are, up there in the top 10, and they will have some points to their name at the conclusion of the first race. Again, yes, with something of an asterisk for those of us who know, but yes, points on the board.
Yeah, well, hey, those drivers got the job done in qualifying when others didn't, and they've kept it on the road in the half a lap of racing we've had when others didn't. So credit where it's due. They've earned these good results, these points that they're going to be scoring, and they, I'm sure, will be very, very pleased. I'm sure they all would have rather had 30 minutes of green flag racing, but hey, if you can start the season off with a nice result, then to some extent, by the time we're back here again tomorrow, they'll have forgotten all about the circumstances. On to what I think will be the final lap we head, and Dries van Langendonk, well, just continues to serenely follow the BMW safety car, as he has done for most of the race, and barring any real dramas here, mechanically speaking, the race win will be his.
Yes, a second win in F4 competition, albeit one quite drastically different from his first at Donington in the British Championship towards the end of last year. And it will be a flying start to his season with a full points haul. Of course, the rookie class, which again is looking like where a lot of the fastest drivers overall are going to be this year, going to lock out the overall top 3. So that's a point of intrigue as well. And good to see Jensa getting themselves a podium as well. The last time Jensa got themselves a podium in the Formula Winter Series is a quiz question that I have not prepared for. They almost got one, of course, last year, and then there was a penalty that stole that away in the third race at Barcelona, unfortunately. But yeah, it has been a little while, I think, since we've seen Jensa formally, officially and finally on the podium. So Levian doing a great job and kind of following up on his mission statement. You'll note that when we heard from him yesterday in the interview we played out during the red flag, a lot of what he was saying was we, and I want to get us a good result. I want to get Jensa a good result. A lot of kind of team thinking from the young man, which is certainly a positive tick on his box. So then, road in 1-2, as it has been all race long. Alfie Slater, I think, will probably be the most frustrated driver out there on the circuit, because he's been that close to the lead this entire time, largely behind the safety car. And I mean, you heard the mission statements, the gun-ho attitude from Alfie Slater while he was talking to Izzy down there on the grid. He wanted to go racing from the start. He doesn't mind fighting a little bit of aquaplaning, but of course sometimes we do have to step in and say, well, come on, let's calm down. And that's effectively what race control have had to do in this one. And well, unfortunately, when we did try and go racing, we saw why a tentative approach was being taken. And again, as your point was made, Andy, they've had so few laps seemingly uninterrupted. We've watched the red flag light panels off and on during every session, not just the formulas, the GTs and the GT4s as well. This is not an easy track at the best of times, and scarcely have we had a dry session all weekend.
No, exactly so, and there's a good chance tomorrow will be damp as well, as we've already alluded to, so I think that's set to continue, and a few drivers perhaps will really be just looking forward to the next round of the championship when they can hopefully find some slightly more positive weather. But yeah, I agree, I think Alfie Slater will be frustrated. In the half a lap of racing we did have, he had closed right back in on Dries van Langendonk, so to my point, I think being the leader in that particular set of circumstances wasn't necessarily a huge advantage, and Alfie, had the race continued under green flag, might well have been able to take the fight to the race leader. For now, though, that is going to have to remain in the hypothetical. We'll perhaps get a proper answer to that tomorrow if we get some proper green flag racing in.
Yeah, race 2 and race 3 both set for Sunday here in the Formula Winter Series. They will come across the line this time to take the checkered flag, and Dries van Langendonk will lead them across the line, even if Alfie is having a little look to his right-hand side as a bit of a joke, I think, probably more than anything else. Across the line they go then, and the race win does go to Dries van Langendonk, his first win in the Formula Winter Series, Rodin's first win since Aragon in 2024. And his second win overall since moving into the world of car racing. Van Langendonk from Slater from Levian will be both our rookie top 3 and our overall top 3 here in the Formula Winter Series. And Alicia Palmovsky with a very competitive 4th place. Her best finish ever in the Formula Winter Series. Again, of course, yes, it comes with the asterisk that we've had very little racing, but again, just surviving in these conditions has proven to be a bit tricky, and it's this eternal frustration that we have now on the in-lap where, it starts to look raceable, but unfortunately the conditions just weren't playing ball there, and the incidents that unfolded when we did try and go back to racing maybe make it clear why we didn't finish under green flag conditions. Noah Killian in 5th place behind Palmovsky, Ian Kraling in 6th, and see there the amount of sweeping up work that's going to need to be done there. That was from Orsini going off the track, and it's a very deep gravel trap actually there at the exit curve VIP, so he did quite well to keep his foot in it and get the car back onto the tarmac, did Vittorio Orsini. Looking forward to seeing what he does this year actually in the AKM Motorsport team. The Italian won the Supercorso Federale Acci Sport Award, which is the Federation's training program, which is designed for karters moving into the world of car racing. And I think the most famous of all to win that award was, of course, Andrea Kimi Antonelli, who has, let's call it a personal connection with AKM Motorsport, which of course is his father Marco's team. So we'll keep an eye on Orsini. A lot of talents that I'm very excited to see in proper racing conditions here this year in the Formula Winter Series. It's so then the Van Langendonk car pulls up to P1. Van Langendonk will celebrate the victory. He'll be, I think, as frustrated as anybody not to have got some racing in, but a great start to him. Championship will be the goal for Dries Van Langendonk. And he starts it off with a full haul of points. So, DVL to the top, and we'll be joined, of course, in a Roden 1-2 by Alfie Slater. Alfie, I think, will be more frustrated than Dries for obvious reasons, but especially because he just really did back himself ultimately for these kind of conditions, and liken the circuit actually to Alton Park, Estoril, which is a slightly off-piste comparison, but one that he made in a favourable manner. He thought that certainly if we had the combination of rain and this circuit that he would thrive. And yeah, disappointing that we didn't get to see Alfie, at least in the first race, we'll try and follow up on his own word, as it were, but race 2 and 3 will hopefully provide the opportunity for that, both of which, of course, will take place here on Sunday. But we've got a lot of racing still to come for the GT Winter Series and the GT4s. But for now, let's talk to our winner in the Formula Winter Series and the first race of the year. Dries Van Langendonk is with Izzy.
Yeah, welcome down to Parc Fermé. I have our race 1 winner alongside me, Dries. I mean, there wasn't much racing, was there? Probably the easiest race win of your life. But you actually just had to survive out there, right?
Yeah, it was a bit unfortunate that we didn't get any racing laps, but yeah, it was overall still a pretty positive moment. Yeah, just keeping it on track. It was pretty tricky out there, so yeah, not much to say about this race.
And I guess in some ways it is still a credit to you that you set the lap in qualifying, so you were on the pole position and therefore had the best view.
Yeah, qualifying was really good, so I think it benefited me here. So yeah, showed all the work behind the scenes.
It's been a tricky weekend overall with the conditions. Obviously, we've got 2 more races tomorrow. I think you'll be starting from a good position for those as well, but how are you feeling for those?
Yeah, same as this. I think the pace is really strong, both dry and wet, so yeah, we'll see how it comes, and yeah, see how it comes.
All right, well, congratulations. We'll let you get up to the podium and celebrate our first winner in the Formula Winter Series.
Well, there we go, indeed, our first winner for the season in FWS. And unfortunately, a race where we didn't see terribly much action. Let's hope we rectify that on Sunday. So then, the first race of the Formula Winter Series in 2026, unfortunately one that was a safety car process for much of the race, then a red flag, but we did go to racing after about 20 minutes behind the safety car or in the pit lane. Dries Van Langendonk led them down to the first corner with Alfie Slater behind. Unfortunately, this wouldn't last terribly long. There was already some stacking up at the first corner, and then at turn 2, unfortunately, the number 3 of Alexander Ruta and Harry Bansal both going off the circuit. There was a rally crossing moment from Vittorio Orsini, the 37 looping around as well. That was Victor Poulsen, one of many incidents going on around the circuit. We also saw the 53 car going off-piste as well, and Ethan Lennon in the 32 also stranded, unsurprisingly, with that many cars off or indeed stopped in the first sector. The safety car took control of proceedings once again, and ultimately we would finish under safety car conditions. Dries van Langendonk claiming the first win of the season in the Formula Winter Series. The first of many, perhaps. We'll have to wait and see how he progresses from here. He'll be slightly disappointed with how the win came to be, but it is a win all the same. Here at Circuito Estoril, a historic venue to tick off the bucket list as a race winner, and a race winner with a big smile on his face as well. Dries van Langendonk winning then by just a couple of tenths over Alfie Slater in safety car conditions. Levian in third place for Yenza Motorsport ahead of Alicia Palmovsky in the Campos car for fourth place. Noah Killian in P5 ahead of Arjen Krelin in sixth. Philippe Rice in 7th place, alongside Thomas Rudokas in 8th place. Ginevra Panzeri and Ludovico Busso rounding out the top 10, so they will all get, of course, overall championship points for their efforts there. Thomas Behrman in 11th place ahead of Rocco Coronel, two Van Amersfoort drivers who I think will be a bit disappointed to have not had an opportunity to really climb the field, although they did make up places. Crown Motorsports' Oscar Repetto in 13th, alongside Maximilian Kamalander, 13th and 14th respectively. Marcus Silkunas for Yenza in 15th, Chiara Batig in 16th, Samuel Ifrid in 17th, and Vittorio Orsini 18th place. Georgi Zazov and Andre Rodriguez taking us down to P20. In 21st place, Rafaela Ferreira for 21st, Theo Borenstein for 22nd, Matilda Patz in 23rd place, and Pedro Lima in 24th. Roman Kamyab in 25th position, Alexander Savinkov in 26th. Victor Poulsen, of course, one of those that had an off, as well as Alexander Ruta, Ari Bansel and Ethan Lennon, all of whom failed to reach the checkered flag. And then at the very back of the field, in 31st place, was Abdullah Kamil, who did not rejoin the race, I believe, after the red flag period, ended up staying in the pit lane. So then, next up, it will be the GT4 Winter Series, but we do have some celebrations now on the podium with Andy McEwen, our first FWS podium of 2026.
We are ready to go on the podium then, our first podium of the weekend and our first Formula Winter Series race of the weekend. We're going to start by introducing our best female driver, and the win goes to Alicia Palmovsky. Congratulations, Alicia. Big round of applause, and she is on to the top step of the podium. Trophy handed over by Amanda Kangai from Pirelli, and Alicia very pleased with the class win, just missing out in the end on the overall podium. She's going to pose for some pictures on the top step, and then we will jump in and have a quick chat with Alicia Palmovsky and get her thoughts on the race. Alicia, I used the word race quite loosely there. You got, I think, half a lap in, but you were right in the thick of a battle for the little bit of racing we had.
Yeah, definitely. To be honest, the 4 corners that I did were not 4 good corners. Just made a mistake into turn 1. Just the visibility was so poor, so misjudged the braking point, and then that put me on the back foot, really. Tried a different line into turn 4, tried to copy the 2 guys ahead of me, and it did work, so got a bad exit and then lost P3. But all good learning for tomorrow. We're expecting more rain, so we'll go through the data, see what we can learn ahead of tomorrow, and hopefully do a better job.
Excellent stuff, Alicia. Thank you very much for having a chat. Alicia Palmovsky then, our best female driver in the first Formula Winter Series race of the weekend. Now, the rookie top 3 is exactly the same as our overall top 3, so we're going to combine the 2 podiums together, and we'll start with our 3rd place rookie and overall driver, Levian. Levy gets a big cheer from the Yenza Motorsports team down below. It was, though, a Rodin driver in 2nd position. The 2nd step of the podium beckons for Alfie Slater. Well done, Alfie, on to the 2nd step of the podium, but it is a win in the first round of the Formula Winter Series for Dries van Langendonk. And Dries climbs to the top step of the podium to be joined by a representative from Rodin Motorsport, Josh Palmer. Rodin celebrates a race victory, and now we will pause for the national anthem of the winning driver. Dries van Langendonk wins the first Formula Winter Series race of the season. And now it's time for the trophies to be handed out. We've got Miguel from GEDLICH, also Amanda's back with Florenti Casso from Pirelli as well to hand out the trophies then. 2 trophies for each driver. So we've got the rookie trophies and of course the overall top 3 podium. Exactly the same drivers. The rookie class looking strong again in Formula Winter Series for 2026. Trophies, I think, just about have all been handed out. Another big round of applause from the crowd down in the pit lane. Lots of very happy team members celebrating with their equally happy drivers. They might not have had a huge amount of racing in that one, but it was still a valuable start to the season for those who've managed to score some good points. 2 more races tomorrow, of course, for Formula Winter Series, and we may well see some different faces appearing on these 3 podium steps. The drivers then will celebrate with their teams down below. That, though, concludes our Formula Winter Series element of the day. We'll be heading back out on track with some GT racing coming up soon, courtesy of GT4 Winter Series. That's up next here at Estoril.
Nexano, on the path to becoming the world's largest independent business community. We connect entrepreneurs, experts, and decision makers across industries and across borders. In our digital ecosystem, people share knowledge, learn from each other, and grow together. Companies and talents gain access to relevant contacts, resources, and innovative projects. Our community stands for transparency, trust, and sustainable economic success. We create space for inspiration, collaboration, and new business models. Nexano, shaping the future of business networking, global, digital, and accessible to everyone.
So we move on to cars that thankfully have a roof, I think, for the participants. It's time for the GT4 Winter Series with their second round of the season, their first race of the weekend. Will be a 30-minute affair, so no pit stops to consider. It is a pure sprint race, and we will hopefully be getting that one underway, I suspect, with a single file start under wet conditions and a couple of laps behind the safety car. But it is Enrico Ferderer who is going to be on pole position for the race, with Ravi Ramid alongside him. A very compelling top 2, I make that, and two of the drivers that are and two of the teams, of course, that are also a factor, I think, in the overall championship standings as well. Also, there's an AM entry right at the sharp end as well in the form of Joachim Bolting. We will have a little bit of a piece on some of these bronze drivers that are really making themselves known in the GT classes this year. We very much look forward to talking a bit more with those competitors, but a really interesting grid up and down the field. We've got Gonzalo Vega as well in the Zone Racing McLaren, 6th on the grid for the older spec 570S GT4 in the club class. And then the Speedworks machine as well. We have a Cayman Trophy entry for the first time this year. The Cayman Trophy for the CS spec Porsche Caymans. That's the slightly sub GT4 performance, but Franz Linden has got the car lined up 7th on the grid, so he'll be looking to make some inroads from that position. Speaking of being in position, Izzy is in position. Let's go down to the grid and hear from her.
I certainly am. Our second race of the day, and if you were with us for the Formula Winter Series race, well, it almost looks like a completely different place, doesn't it? It was bucketing it down. We still have had a little bit of rain in the air, but it is dry and sunny right now. Of course, the track, though, will be very wet for this first GT4 race of the weekend. Of course, round 2 for them. And as Adam said, we have a very intriguing front row. I'm going to jump in with our pole sitter first, and that is the number 11 of Enrico Ferderer. It's their first pole position of the season for them. I know they were struggling with a couple of issues with the car last weekend. Well, Enrico, a first pole of the season. This is where you should be, isn't it?
Yeah, that's my favorite place. So the last race in Portimao was not the best weekend, but now we're back on the first row in pole position, and I hope the best for the race. The sun is coming out, but on the weather radar it's showing rain again, so it's gonna be a crazy race.
Yeah, you guys were struggling with a few issues with the car last weekend, I know, but still both you and Joel managed to fight back to the podium. Is everything fixed this weekend?
Yeah, everything is fixed.
Awesome. And how tricky is the track looking out there right now? I mean, we've had a lot of rain, as you say, dry now, but we could get some more rain.
Yeah, for now you have a lot of water on some spots of the track, so it's a little bit tricky with aquaplaning. But I think when the sun comes out, it's dry really fast. But when it starts raining again, it's going to be very tricky.
All right, go well. Best of luck. Thanks for speaking to us. Right, I am going to dive in with P2, and that will be Ravi Ramyud on the front row for them, and leaders of the championship as well. Ravi, great to see you on the front row, and you guys are leading the championship. I know you won't be thinking about that just yet, but a great place to be.
Oh yeah, you know what? I'm next to Enrico. I've got no spray going into turn 1. I am on the rubber, so let's see what's going to happen. We come up turn 1.
How do you reckon the BMW fares around here?
It's not bad. I mean, the Porsches are quicker, but it's hard to overtake around here, and I like getting my elbows out, so let's see.
Yeah, make things interesting for us, yeah?
Yeah, I will do my best.
All right, best of luck. Thanks for speaking to us. We're going to continue back on the grid because we do have a little bit of time. And I want to show you the car just on this second row here, the number 32 of Joachim Bolting. Now, he wasn't running this livery last weekend in Portimao, but he is running it this weekend, and this is probably one of the coolest looking cars I think I've ever seen. I am going to try and jump in and have a chat with Joachim. Well, Joachim, great to see you. I mean, you revel in these kind of conditions, don't you?
Yeah, so went good. We will see what the race will be. It's completely wet. That is my condition I like. I'm not so quick than the professionals in the dry conditions, but just let us look.
Well, we could have a little bit more rain. I know it's sunny now, but there is more rain at forecast. Just on the car, I mean, you've got one of the best looking liveries I think I've ever seen. This is a pretty cool looking car, isn't it?
Yeah, it is completely different to the others. That was the plan, and it worked.
Yeah, it certainly stands out. Have a good race. Right, we're going to continue down the grid because we've got a little bit more time. Team's just leaving to show you another Pro-Am car. Now, this is the number 30 of Tim Horold. Now, Tim had great pace last weekend in Portimao, as you would have seen. They took the overall win in race 3. I've got a bit of time. Can I jump in and have a chat? Yeah, we got a little bit more time. Tim, great to see you again. I mean, Portimao was a mixed weekend in terms of pace. Great, but there were a couple of issues certainly in the first race, weren't there?
Yeah, for sure. I had a bad luck with the suspension fail, but yeah, look for better luck in this race. Got caught out a little bit in qualifying, but I think now the conditions are a little bit in our favor for the Porsche. So, yeah, we'll see how it plays out.
What's the mindset going into this? How confident are you at this track?
I'm definitely confident in the wet for sure. Where we had a lot of practice time, we were near the top of the charts. So, yeah, again, we'll see how the race plays out.
Go well out there. Good luck. Right. We will continue back. I'm not sure. I don't think I've got all that much time. So instead of chatting to drivers that are getting in the zone, I'm going to show you a couple more of the cars. We certainly have a new entry in the Pro class, the number 85 of Tom Pappenberg, and a very happy birthday to him as well. I am reliably informed by our GEDLICH Racing crew that it is his birthday. It is also the first GT4 race for him, so we'll see how that goes. I mean, what a way to spend your birthday. In beautiful sunshine at the moment. We'll see how this race pans out. We are just about to get thrown off the grid though, so we will go back to our commentators, Adam Weller and Andy McEwen.
Nexano, on the path to becoming the world's largest independent business community. We connect entrepreneurs, experts, and decision makers across industries and across borders. In our digital ecosystem, people share knowledge, learn from each other, and grow together. Companies and talents gain access to relevant contacts, resources, and innovative projects. Our community stands for transparency, trust, and sustainable economic success. We create space for inspiration, collaboration, and new business models. Nexano, shaping the future of business networking. Global, digital, and accessible to everyone.
Cars are rolling then, and it will be a BMW versus Mercedes, front row of the grid. SR Motorsport by Schnitzelhaum's Enrico Federer on pole position for this first 30-minute sprint of the weekend, and Ravi Ramyeed looking to make an impact from P2. We'll see what he can do with the Pro-Am entry, the AM of the Pro-Am entry. Joachim Bolting likes his chances in the wet conditions from third, the first of the AM drivers in the field, at least within the AM class, and Tim Horrell alongside him, his W&S Motorsport teammate, locking out that second row of the grid. Tom Pappenberg for CV Motorsport with JP Motorsport. It is actually CV Performance with JP Motorsport. Tom Pappenberg from 5th. Gonzalo Vega in 6th position for Zone Racing in the first of those McLaren 570Ss, the OGs, the older McLaren GT4 machines. Row 4 of the grid will be Franz Linden for Speedworks. That's the sole Cayman Trophy entry alongside Bruno Pereira in his 007 Aston Martin. That's the car with the growing asphalt slogan along the side of its door. Wilhelm Brunner in the SR Motorsport by Schnitzelhaum Mercedes lining up in P9. He's alongside Pavel Savicka in P10. Thilo Goss in 11th position in the BWT Muka Motorsport Aston Martin V8 Vantage GT4. That is the first generation Aston Martin, and he is alongside Antonio Duarte for Zone Racing, the number 95 car rounding out the order. 12 cars then to take the start of this race across a healthy spread of classes. We've got 3 club class cars out there in the field, which means we've got some more representation from some of the older GT4s we don't really see that often anymore, which is always a lot of fun. But the Pro-Am class looking really compelling this weekend. 5 cars in the category, and 2 of them on the first 2 rows of the grid. Tim Horrell and Ravi Ramyeed once again kind of getting themselves in amongst it with the drivers that are silver and even gold rated.
Which we did see a week ago in Portimao, didn't we? So yeah, great to see that has continued for them. I'm sure there are some pro drivers who are rather questioning exactly how competitive the likes of Ravi Ramyeed are, but Ravi has really done this throughout his whole career, hasn't he? When he came into Ginetta Racing only a handful of years ago, he was a complete novice. He had never raced anything before, and within a year, well, less than a year actually, he was winning races in his debut season, and just made these big steps forward year on year into British GT, of course, where he had success, narrowly missing out on the British GT4 Championship last year. But yeah, a really, really strong pairing, a really, really strong AM driver is Ravi Ramyeed, and his Pro co-driver Charlie Robertson we'll see out later in the weekend likewise. But Enrico Federer on pole position, he'll be looking for a solid set of results this weekend. The SR Motorsport by Schnitzel Racing squad had a mixed weekend in Portimao, I think it's fair to say. Certainly their GT Winter Series effort did not get off to a brilliant start, and that really was a bit of a shock for the top team last year, and here they have an opportunity to get a bit more silverware in the GT4 Winter Series. We're right on board here with Paweł Savicka in the Blue Garage Racing car, the 144, and this is the car, the Lotus Emira, which will be starting 10th on the grid, giving us a great onboard view of the circuit and really allowing us to pick out some of the elevation change. Having spent a weekend at Portimao a week ago, I think maybe any racetrack would look pretty flat and level in comparison. But actually, we can see there from the onboard camera quite a bit of elevation change. That does add to the challenge of the circuit, particularly in wet and greasy conditions.
Yes, exactly right, and it does look the most promising it has, at least since we started racing. We were nearly dry, of course, before the lunch break, but unfortunately the conditions have worsened here in the afternoon. We are going to go back to racing this time per the race control, so it looks like we should get a full quotient of GT4 Winter Series action. Ravi Ramyid in the BMW M4 GT4 Evo. Will he be the primary challenger to Enrico Federer, or will it be perhaps Joachim Boelting, who has proven himself mighty handy in these wet conditions before? Both of those W&S Caymans on the second row of the grid look like a threat from where I'm sitting, and we'll keep an eye on their progress. Of course, Boelting had a real show-stopping performance at Portimao last year in wet conditions, kind of announcing his proclivity for this weather to those who hadn't seen him in that circumstance before. Federer, last year's GT4 Germany champion, along with Jamo Hartling, who of course is in the GT3 SR Motorsport entry. He had a difficult weekend. I think it was a timing chain ultimately that was gone on the Mercedes-AMG GT4 number 11 car, so that was the issue there. It was the 111 car that had to have its backup brought in with the engine replaced on Monday, as the SR team has had a lot of work to do this week. Let's see if Enrico Federer can pay off all of that work. He's already pulled the pin. He's caught Ravi Ramyid out a little bit there, I think, with how it was timed. It will be Federer clean into the first corner all by himself, then Ramyid, then Boelting in third place. Will anyone be close enough for a move as they approach the first turn for the first time?
Well, let's see. Not in the first couple of positions maybe, but further back there might be somebody feeling a bit brave. Certainly late on the brakes there was Tom Pappenberg in his Mercedes, but ducks back into line. There is the first attempted move. Is it a clean one? Hold your breath. Yes, it is. That was Franz Linden up the inside of Gonzalo Vega, and well, didn't quite pay off in the end, but that inside line under braking is very tempting, but in the wet, not always the part of the circuit where we have the most grip. The good news is they're all cleanly through the first few corners, so we're already doing better than Formula Winter Series. Drivers who have had a fair bit of wet running already this year, the GT4 drivers, and that is showing. A very wide line there for Ramyid, and Joachim Boelting on the traditional tight line through the gravel. There goes Vega, 2 wheels in the dirt, and a couple of positions lost as a result.
Yeah, not the start Vega would have wanted from 6th overall. Doesn't want to lose out on that club class advantage. Here comes Tim Horrell looking a little bit racy on the back of Joachim Boelting in the battle for 2nd, 3rd and 4th place. Boelting's tail going a bit loose underneath him there, and Ravi Ramyid was struggling for grip as well. Tim Horrell looking to take advantage of both as they run down to Arilla for the first time under proper racing conditions. And straying wide there is Ramyid, trying to find some grip on the outside of the corner, which he succeeds at doing so. Boelting, though, has his inside line. He goes across the slippery paint, manages to keep the car in a straight line, but still the big BMW leads the pair of W&S Porsches, and I'm somewhat surprised that it's still Boelting ahead in that dice, although they are side by side as they approach the S's.
Yeah, but not by the time they get to the S's, look. So Boelting hanging on. Ravi Ramyid really struggling for confidence, I think, on this opening lap. He's picked up the pace a bit now, but through that middle sector just didn't seem to have anything like the amount of grip that he needed or usually would expect from his BMW M4 GT4, and Yeah, he now, I think, finally is starting to get himself into a bit of a rhythm. The battle then is for third between the two Porsches. So Jürgen Bolting and Tim Horrell go absolutely toe-to-toe down the main straight and into the braking zone at turn 1. Horrell later on the brakes, ducks to the inside line. Does he commit to the move? Tries to, but we know that the outside line should prevail on corner exit, which it does. And for now, Bolting hangs on.
Meanwhile, in 5th place there, lurking in the second of the Mercedes-AMG GT4s, is Tom Pappenberg for the CV Performance by JP Motorsport team, or rather it is the other way around, realistically. CV Performance doing majority of the work on the car, but Tom Pappenberg 15 today and racing a GT4 car. It's a charmed life, I'd like to imagine. He's done a lot of testing in GT cars, so while this is a new experience for him racing, he has got a fair bit of mileage under his belt. We saw Franz Linden there in P6 as well, so he's navigated his way past Bruno Pereira there for that 6th overall. Cayman Trophy lead, yes, because he's the only driver in the class, but he'll be focusing on overall positions in this race. Ravi Ramid there again, looks like he's quite tentative through the longer, more flowing corners, and Bolting has a nose ahead as they run down to Arella. The downhill braking zone, very tricky at the best of times. Ramid is just about still ahead in the BMW. Has he managed to hold on for another lap through that section? The answer is yes, and I think the sheer width of that BMW helped him out greatly there.
Yeah, that's a good point, well made actually. Look at him clambering over the inside curb there, coming out of the Gancho chicane. But it is difficult to get past that car when it fills almost 50% of the road at some parts of the circuit. Goes very wide there through the left-hand element of the S's. Jürgen Bolting is on the hunt here, isn't he? And I think Jürgen will feel that if he gets past Ramid, he should have the pace to get away from this group, and that really is what he wants, to try and solidify a podium finish, of course, where he is now. Yes, he looks racy, but he's under threat from Tim Horrell, who again will be looking maybe to make a move into turn 1. The Porsche always performing well in the speed traps. Look, closes in on the BMW, takes the wider line on the way into the turn this time, does Jürgen, looking to try and carry the speed off the corner. If there's room for his Porsche Cayman to get alongside the BMW, this might just work. He draws almost alongside, but again, Ravi Ramid, his racecraft has always been top-notch, hasn't it? And coming through One Make Racing, that really does train you on how to deal with these on-track combat situations. And he really is in combat now. That was contact, was it, as they went into the braking zone? And we were on board with Jürgen Bolting, who is stationary and pointing the wrong way. They're all off. Horrell, Ramid and Jürgen Bolting all off the road. They've all fallen over in a heap at turn number 3, and that is absolute disaster.
2 busted radiators on the W&S Caymans, that much is for sure. We're going to need to get an external view of that if we can, because we saw parts of the story. We certainly saw how it ended, but for Ravi Ramid, for Jürgen Bolting and Tim Horrell, all 3 will be frustrated. We won't lay blame against anyone's door until we see quite how we got to the end. The safety car is out there on the circuit. I think we're going to look back now at the onboard in a few moments time. We'll get a look back at the onboard. We could also really do with seeing the external view, because I think that will tell more of the story. Franz Linden then will have gained a lot of positions. He'll be up to 3rd overall. Tom Pappenberg will be running in 2nd overall, but Franz Linden not even in a GT4 spec car, strictly speaking. It's pretty close to it. A little less power, a little less aero, but the CS spec Cayman is very similar. All the same, not strictly a GT4, and there it is up in 3rd.
Well, that was a truly bizarre situation. You could sort of see it coming, though, couldn't you? Because Ravi was a little bit of a cork in the bottle for whatever reason, just didn't seem to have the car underneath him at that point. And both Jürgen Bolting and Tim Horrell were getting ever more impatient to find a way past him, which, of course, in the end, they weren't able to do. So Mercedes AMG 1-2 now, then, with Enrico Ferderer leading from Tom Pappenberg, as you said. Tom couldn't believe his luck, I'm sure, when he saw that unfolding in front of him. He would have had ringside seats for that, because he was right behind those 3 cars. And I would love to have been able to see and indeed hear his reaction when they all fell off the circuit in front of him. He inherits 2nd, as Adam quite rightly says. It is Franz Linden 3rd, Bruno Pereira 4th, and Gonzalo Vega in 5th position, despite his little off-track excursions a little bit earlier on.
You see there the 700 car then, Thilo Goss, who's now by default effectively up all the way into 8th position with only 12 cars starting the race. Losing 3 means that a lot of these drivers will get points in the overall championship, where the top 10 determine the points in the F1/FIA style. So top 10 means that everyone will score at this stage. You see there the rescue crews working hard. I think we might have a slightly lopsided ratio of trucks to broken race cars, unfortunately. This might take a couple of moments. But yeah, certainly not the start to the weekend that any of those 3 parties would have wanted, and especially for Ramid and Bolting, Ramid and Horrell actually, sorry, this is a bit of a loss, because of course we'd rather expect both of them to be overall championship contenders on the strength of what we saw at Portimao, and now they're going to have a bit of a non-score. We look now at the 32 car, and well, that's the moment the screen froze up, but oh, it was a double hit there. I think what happened was Bolting tapped Ramid into a spin, and then Horrell collected Ramid as well as the car was fully sideways. So that was, well, certainly a rude awakening, I think, for Ravi, as the first hit made him aware of Joachim's presence, the second sent him into a spin, and then Tim, unfortunately, was kind of, I think, the innocent bystander in all of that, more so than anyone.
Well, they were all running bumper to bumper, weren't they? Quite literally going into that braking zone, and when the 2 cars ahead tangled, I just don't think Tim Horrell had any chance to react to that, and yeah, ended up clattering into both of them. So Tim's car will have a couple of witness marks on it, I'm sure. There'll be damage to all 3, which needs to be repaired overnight ahead of races 2 and 3 of the weekend tomorrow. So significant moment that, as Adam quite rightly says, in the context of the championship, especially because Enrico Federer, of course, is leading. Now there is Ravi Ramid continuing. There is, I think, possibly some damage. Yes, I think the exhaust is hanging loose on the left-hand side of the car, so that will be of some concern. But if the tracking's okay, if it's still steering right, then I suppose he might, well, still be able to salvage a half-decent result from this.
Well, he is a lap down critically as well. We did see that the car was still there and stationary when the safety car queue went past, so I think I'm right in saying that it will be a lap behind, but we'll wait and see on that front. Yes, he is indeed a lap down on the rest of the field. Joachim Bolting has just made it back into the pit lane, incidentally, so with the damage to his car, he is back around the circuit, but unfortunately taking no further part in the race, one would imagine, with what is most likely quite a heavily damaged radiator.
Indeed so. So lots of work for the teams then to do overnight, and that is, as we said, not the ideal start to the weekend. Great start to the weekend, though, for SR Motorsport. Enrico Federer will be very pleased with the situation that he now finds himself in. And as I said, another, championship contending team, one would expect. How significant could this prove to be for the SR Motorsport by Schnitzelalm Racing squad come Barcelona at the end of the season? Tom Pappenberg, as we've documented at length, is in 2nd position. Then the lone Cayman Trophy Porsche of Franz Linden, Bruno Pereira 4th, Gonzalo Veiga in 5th, and Wilhelm Kuhn in the 2nd SR Motorsport Mercedes in 6th position. Class leaders, Pro, of course, led by Federer, and you can see the different coloured sort of lines next to the car numbers on your timing tower to denote the different classes. So Pro led by Federer, Pro-Am now, of course, by Bruno Pereira, with the demise of Ravi Ramid and Tim Horrell, who were scrapping not only for 2nd position in the race, but also for the lead of the class, as we saw there, Joachim Bolting's Am class Porsche being wheeled back into the garage, so that car's out of the way. Club class led by Vega. And that's about it now, unfortunately, so it will be a slightly quicker podium presentation, I suspect, than usual later on, because we've got no AM podium to have now, which is a great shame for Joachim Bolting, who really does enjoy his racing. We heard that enthusiasm when he spoke to Izzy on the grid earlier on, and he would have been loving that battle, I'm sure, until it all went a little bit wrong.
Well, and I think part of the reason he was so determined and quite keen to find his way by was because he knew he could challenge the overall victory. Federer was streaking away, but he knew he potentially had that pace to try and make a challenge. The safety car then in this lap. We will return to racing, and for young Tom Pappenberg on his 15th birthday, he now has the opportunity perhaps to challenge for an overall victory. There are only 2 cars entered under the Pro class this weekend, and it's the 2 Mercedes at the front of the field. Now, Papenburg is in for the rest of the season. Förderer and Joel Mesch didn't have a great start to the year in Portimao, so if Papenburg can pick up immediately at the very start of his racing career and start getting some good results, then perhaps that Pro title could be up for debate between the 2 Mercedes outfits at the front of the field. And what about Franz Linden? What can he do from 3rd overall in the Cayman Trophy spec car? Lots of questions. 11.5 minutes left to go. We see Tom Papenburg's splitter is loose as well. That's been there since the first lap of the race. So that's a little bit of wounding on the CV Performance Mercedes, but it is the SR Motorsport Mercedes that leads the way on the approach to the first corner. As you probably would expect, they're arcing away from that standing water. The McLaren didn't, though. Vega was very brave under braking. Did he stop for the corner? Just about. But going across that stream under braking for turn 1, probably not the move.
No, that looked a little bit dodgy, didn't it? Just about got the car stopped, but I think did dip 2 wheels over the exit curb. Ravi Ramid there continuing on in his walking wounded BMW, just trying to score some points. Yes, he's a lap down, but if anybody else falls off the track, which is likely in these conditions, then he could still pick up some more overall positions. So clean restart, and round the left-hander at Curva VIP they head, the 4th corner officially on the circuit, and then through the kink at turn 5. This is a bit of a nothing corner in the dry, but in the wet we saw last year that this caught a few people out, and I believe earlier on this weekend we've had GT4 cars in the gravel at the kink. It's not too bad now as far as standing water's concerned, although still slippery enough to catch people out. Wide there goes Bruno Pereira from 4th position.
Yeah, Pereira there just kind of leaning on that tarmac runoff at the Parabolica interior, which we do see more so in these wet conditions. Do we have something going on there? We have more loose bodywork on the CV Performance Mercedes. Now, 2 years ago here in the GT4 Winter Series, a CV Performance Mercedes, Emil Erdrum and Charles Dawson at the wheel, routinely would lose its rear diffuser, and that seems to be a problem again in 2026.
Yes, I suspect a little bit of contact has loosened it, but then it seems quite keen, doesn't it, to detach from the rest of the car. Has it done that? I think it might have done.
Somewhat.
Yes, it's not hanging down anymore, which is not great for performance, of course. That rear diffuser is there for a reason. You can see him sliding out of the final corner, perhaps as a result of that, but at least it shouldn't catch the attention now of the race director. There was a risk, I think, that car might have been summoned into the pit lane to have that repaired or removed, so thankfully it's fallen off and he won't have to make a visit to the pit lane as a result.
Absolutely right, and we're seeing quite the drive here from Vega, aren't we? He's really seemingly got the bit between his teeth here in the 96 McLaren at the moment. He is routinely a front runner in Caterham racing here in Iberia. This was a last-minute change, of course. You remember this was the Aguar and Riani car from a week ago that now has 2 different drivers in it from Zone Racing's Caterham lineup. And this driver, Gonzalo Vega, is quite highly rated in Iberian Caterham circles and looks like he's adapting to a GT4 spec McLaren, or a slightly out-of-date GT4 spec McLaren, quite well, and his familiarity with the circuit means he's willing to test the limits, Andy.
Not that he's spending an awful lot of time on the circuit, at least not fully at the moment. That was another wayward moment coming out of Curva VIP. He is really pushing on. But again, a bit like the Jurgen Bolting situation earlier on, when you know you're stuck behind a car that you feel you're quicker than, it's so frustrating and it's so tempting to maybe start overdriving just a little bit. Flashing the lights from quite a long way back is Vega, who's got, I think, a transponder that isn't working terribly well. He was dropping down our timing tower there, but is still just about in 5th position. Kuna in the 2nd SR Motorsport by Schnitzel Racing Mercedes ranging up behind him as the cars head up through the Gancho chicane. Getting a look there at the Aston Martin of Bruno Pereira. Pro-Am leading car this. The next best Pro-Am is Wilhelm Kuna, though, who of course is closing in slightly on these two. So really Pereira does not want that McLaren to be getting ahead of him, because that removes his little buffer back to his big Pro-Am rival.
Pavel Savicka looking racy as well, as we see Vega there running to the very extremes of the track limit, and frankly slightly beyond it. He does have to be a little bit careful on that front. In the slipstream now of Bruno Pereira as they run down to the first corner once again. Just 7 minutes left on the clock, even though it feels like we're quite a short distance into the race. So not much time here for Vega to make some forward progress. Of course, leading the club class, but clearly wanting for some more in this battle for 4th overall, while Franz Linden has disappeared up the road from them in P3. We ride on board here with Pavel Savicka. Great onboard shot here from the Blue Garage Racing Lotus Emira GT4. Quite a nice field of vision in that car. Not too many blind spots on the side or the front view, and don't see many of these Emiras running around the world globally at the moment, but the Savickas, the father-son duo, Pavel the father, Troy the son, but a good showing in at Portimao, and it'll be interesting to see how they progress this weekend too.
Fascinating there from the onboard camera to see the difference in lines between Savicka and Kuna in front, who was going in tight and then leaving on a wide line, and then Savicka was doing the opposite, just trying to find a small advantage somewhere against the car with which he is battling. Some dry patches now starting to appear on the racetrack, and that perhaps is explaining why a few drivers are starting to struggle for grip. These wet Pirelli tyres, very effective in full wet conditions, but on a dry circuit, of course, they do start to turn a bit jelly-like and lose a little bit of grip. It's not that they're wearing necessarily, just getting a bit too much heat into them in the drying conditions, and the drivers who manage that situation the best are the ones who I think in the final 5 minutes or so might be able to make some progress.
Absolutely right, and Vega with the McLaren 570S, a slightly narrower and shorter shape, or a less tall shape to cut through the air. If he gets a good run here out onto the straight, I suspect he might be able to make use of the slipstream. He's going to get a good run down the straight, not just because of that, but also because he's more willing to use the painted curbs on corner exit. Has a look to the outside. Will it turn into a look to the inside for 4th overall as they run down to the first corner? He's once again going to test himself there on that slippery ravine on the approach to the first corner. Pereira holds on for the time being, but I'm really impressed here with Vega. Not an unknown commodity. He's got a racing record, but it's always difficult to know how it will translate from something like a Caterham into a GT car. And he's really landing on his feet.
Well, yes, although one thing that Caterham Racing, well, two things really that Caterham Racing will teach you is close quarters combat. Caterham racers are sort of known for that, aren't they? And also how to handle a car that's moving around underneath you. And that McLaren, it's quick, but it does look like it's moving around an awful lot, particularly on entry and exit to the corner, although driving on the painted curves possibly has something to do with that as well. And that little slide as a result of running out onto the curb just cost him momentum up through the kink at turn 5. And yeah, he isn't therefore close enough to have a go into Parabolica Interior down at turn 6. Continues to flash the lights as well at Bruno Pereira in the hope that that might distract the Aston Martin driver. But he looks pretty steady, doesn't he, Pereira? Not really making any mistakes. Again, I'm not convinced the tyres are necessarily at their best right now, but he's handling it well and not putting a foot wrong yet.
No, absolutely right, and Pereira there, or rather Vega there, snaking a bit through the precursor to the Gancho chicane, just a little bit of a kink, another corner that isn't much of a corner when the weather is more favourable, but in these greasy conditions you can see the testing of limits under traction, or rather just on turn-in, trying to find that little bit of grip. Pereira taking the wider line, that leaves the inside open to Vega, who was certainly sorely tempted by it, and now tries to get the power down first, coming out of the corner again, using all of the track, and just a glancing blow perhaps with the gravel as well. Andy, I get the feeling he's raising your heartbeat a little bit.
I just don't know how he's getting away with it, to be honest, but there's more grip out there than perhaps other drivers have realised. It is working for him to some extent. Behind, look, we've got Savicka closing in on Wilhelm Kuhner as well. That is actually for second place in Pro-Am between the Mercedes and the Lotus. So two interesting battles to keep one eye on each, I suppose, as the right aboard with the Lotus. In fact, now Pavel Savicka trying to close in on another Pro-Am podium position here. Again, difference in lines perhaps into turn 3, much wider for Kuhn, but Savicka's found some grip on the inside and definitely closed in on the Mercedes there. Is it a similar story through Curva VIP? Well, actually the Lotus this time, the one that slides a little bit wider than planned, and so Kuhn will not have to defend too much, if at all, down into Parabolica interior. But two fascinating battles, two very different cars here, of course, the Mercedes and the Lotus, and very evenly matched to this point.
Yeah, absolutely right. At the front of the field, incidentally, Federer has cleared off 6.7 seconds clear. He will begin the final lap this time by the looks of it, so we'll keep an eye on that. But here comes a move, finally, for 4th place from Vega. Got a good run out of Parabolica interior, sets himself up nicely for Arella, and was already ahead, really, by the braking zone, and continuing to push the limits. Seems quite confident in that cockpit.
Extremely confident. He, again, doesn't mind the car sliding around, and finally managed to maybe just dial that aggression down a touch. Got a good exit, as you said, from the previous corner, and that set up the move. Don't throw it away now. He backs the car into the S's. He's on the grass, he's on the curb, he's heading towards the gravel trap now through the Parabolica. Ayrton Senna does get 2 wheels on the grass again. He is flirting with disaster here, but it's mightily entertaining to watch.
He's on the 3rd date with it. I said that here last year as well. Linden in 3rd position should be out of harm's way. I dare suggest if Vega had got past a little bit sooner, he might have had a bid for overall podium status. Pereira still trying to find his way around the number 96 car, but Vega goes defensive into turn 1, seems to be managing the situation well. A little bit of a stab of brakes there to keep the car in line on corner exit. He's really pushing the limits, as you said, is Vega in the 96. I think we're all Gonzalo Vega fans after this drive. He's kept us firmly entertained, and you can't help but notice that now the Pro-Am battle is all in a line. It's the final lap of the race. Kuna is going to have to work quickly if he wants to try and challenge Pereira for the class win, but they are all there together.
Yeah, that exchanging of positions did hold Pereira up slightly, and I think he's maybe been knocked out of his rhythm slightly as well. So yeah, Kuna and Savicka now starting to range in behind him. They kick up the spray as they head down towards turn number 6. What was the gap then at the start of the lap? 1.6 seconds, Pereira back to Kuhn. In the first sector, 6/10 slower was Pereira, so that gap really is coming down. We're on the final lap of the race, and the checkered flag can't come a moment too soon, I think, for Pereira, if he hopes to hang on to the Pro-Am class victory.
Absolutely right. So then, meanwhile, here comes Enrico Federer through the S's now, through the Parabolica Ayrton Senna. He has driven away. He's not got much coverage for it, but what he will get is a full haul of points, a critical full haul of points after a difficult weekend with a slightly injured car last time out at Portimao. It's a win for Enrico Federer, his first of the season in the 2026 GT4 Winter Series, looking to claim the championship after vice-champion status in 2025. Tom Pappenberg on his racing debut, 2nd overall, the 15-year-old racer. What a story that is. Linden across the line in 3rd, Vega for 4th overall, as well as the club class win, and Pereira does hold on to the Pro-Am win. Kuna was only 2/10 clear of Savicka at the end there as well. The Pro-Am battle went down to the wire. Next across the line will be Thilo Goss in the Aston Martin V8 Vantage GT4. There he comes now out of the final corner and will place in 8th position. A solid start to the weekend for him. Mattis Plushkel, of course, will be in that car for the 2nd race on Sunday morning. And once again, in qualifying, he looked very strong in wet conditions. So I expect that older Aston will be a force to be reckoned with in the races on Sunday. Ravi Ramid comes across the line 10th and a lap down, and just behind him the 9th place finisher Duarte, after a slightly cautious start to his weekend. Antonio Duarte finishes 9th overall. A shame for Ravi Ramid that he was caught up in that incident with Bulting and Horrell. A shame for all 3 parties, all of whom we expected to potentially challenge for the race win if they could match Federer on pace. it wasn't to be, unfortunately, and now the W&S team, of course, have 2 cars to try and repair ahead of the Sunday races. I think they still have spare cars if they need them, but hopefully we will get to see that car, or both cars, back out and in fighting fit order for race 2 on Sunday morning. Meanwhile, the Mercedes cars head back in tandem. CV performance by JP Motorsport, the first time we've seen that combined effort in the GT4 Winter Series, although CV, of course, were racing with us back in 2024. And the team with the best record in the Winter Series GT classes combined, the GT and the GT4, SR Motorsport, by Schnitzelbaum with yet another victory. Enrico Federer with yet another victory as well. That will be a measure of delight for the young German racer. I'm sure he will have big goals coming into 2026. Winning that GT4 Germany title really sets you up as a future star in GT racing. And undoubtedly, there will be big plans in his summer, perhaps including the GEDLICH Racing Summer Series. That would be very interesting to see what he can do in a GT4 car in that multi-class environment. I'm sure we'll get plenty of opportunities to talk to you about that. Emilio Petrovic from the social team there, and one of our photographers for this year, Laurie Southern, down there congratulating Enrico, who's a very open figure in the paddock, quite easy to talk to. The young man, still only 19 years of age, but very confident and sure of himself these days, and certainly the victories, the titles that have come so far are a testament to that, or indeed a bolster to that as well. We'll hear from him very shortly with Izzy Browning, but for he, and indeed for his cohort in the car, Joel Mesh, that is about the perfect start. And certainly Joel, along with JMO Hartling and a few others, were working on that car and other cars after the first weekend of the season at Portimao. They really do put their blood, sweat and tears into it down there at SR Motorsport. Let's go to Izzy. She is with Enrico.
I certainly am with Enrico. Congratulations, first win of the season. I mean, it was all going on behind you, but for you, it was a nice Saturday afternoon drive.
Yeah, thank you for first. Thank you. It was an awesome race. The team did a really good job. They worked the whole week from Portimao that we can make things like this happen. And thank you to all the mechanics and the team. Yeah.
And before safety car and after safety car, you were off into the distance regardless.
Yeah, the car was super fast. I had a really good safety car start. And yeah, I could manage it till the end. Yeah.
Does the championship fight start here then, to get the win off, the monkey off your back and get the win now?
Yeah, it starts here. Yeah.
And what can you tell Joel for tomorrow? Obviously, he takes the car over tomorrow morning. Can he do the same?
Yeah, he can do the same. Yeah, I know it.
I like the confidence. Congratulations. We'll let you go and celebrate a first win for Enrico Federer.
A great first victory then for Enrico of this season in the GT4 Winter Series. Let's look at how it was done. Highlights of the first race of the weekend here at Estoril in the GT4 Winter Series. Enrico Federer making use of a safety car start to the race to build himself a couple of car lengths through the last corner. By turn one, he had a fairly sizable lead, and he left second, third and fourth places to do the fighting amongst themselves. Ravi Ramyid was having to defend for both W&S Motorsport Porsches, Joachim Bulting and the Tim Horrell driven car. We saw that the 96 as well of Gonzalo Vega having a slight off-track moment in the first lap of the race as Tim Horrell was looking to get around his W&S teammate, and both of them were looking to try and find a way around the L'Espace Bienvenu BMW, but the opportunities were not forthcoming. Bulting had a couple of opportunities down at the Arela corner, turn 7 of the lap, but there was never quite enough space. And then, unfortunately, on the run down to turn 3, there was a moment of impact between the Ravi Ramyid BMW, Joachim Bulting and Tim Horrell. All three cars made contact with each other. Both W&S Porsches looked to have broken radiators. Ravi Ramyid would continue in the race, but he would be a lap down, and the car looked quite wounded. Tom Pappenberg then up to second position in amongst all of that, though he was carrying some damage to the rear bodywork of his car, which was dragging along the road and disintegrating in the path of third place man Franz Linden. Most of the intrigue in the final part of the race came from the battle for fourth overall, as Bruno Pereira was trying to defend against the club class leader Gonzalo Vega in that McLaren 570S GT4, which he was using to great effect in the race. Yes, he was leading the club class, but he wanted more, and finally on the run down to Arela Bend, he got the car ahead, and while he was certainly still driving slightly beyond the limit, he was secure in fourth position. Secure at the very front of the field, Enrico Ferderer claiming the first full haul of points of the season in the GT4s for himself and Joel Mesh in the 11 car. That will be a big bolster to them and their championship hopes. Let's go back down to Izzy though, because I believe she's caught our second place driver, Tom Pappenberg.
I have indeed got Tom alongside me. I mean, we had to come and chat to him. Tom, first of all, very happy birthday. What a great way to spend your birthday.
Yeah, it was really well. First laps wasn't quite okay. We did some low tire pressure, but after some laps the tires started working, and I had the grip, and 3 cars in front of me had an incident, so I just got my way through, and then just drove my own race, so really happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, you must have been delighted when you saw that happen in front of you. You probably had the perfect view of the incident.
Yeah, the incident was quite rough, so but yeah, it was perfect for me, so I just passed my way through, and I didn't have any issues with it, so that's really nice. And yeah, I just did my own race, and yeah, it's my first race in the GT4 cars, first race in real cars, so this is not a bad way to start the weekend.
Not a bad way to start the weekend at all. As you say, first race in cars and your birthday. I mean, all these things coming together for a great day. How much confidence does this give you for tomorrow?
A lot, but tomorrow we start from the back, but let's see what we can do. Maybe if we have another incident in front of us, we can pass the way through, and hopefully we are on the podium tomorrow.
Well, we'll let you go and celebrate this podium. Congratulations and a happy birthday once again. A brilliant birthday for Tom Pappenberg.
Well, that's a young man I suspect we'll hear from a few more times over the years. Getting some mentoring from Nico Verdonk as well this weekend. Enrico Ferderer wins the race by 8.6 seconds over Tom Pappenberg. Franz Linden in third position in the Speedworks number 66 car, ahead of the real star of the show, at least in terms of on-track action, and that was Gonzalo Vega, our club class winner. Bruno Pereira wins the Pro-Am class from 5th overall ahead of Willi Kuhne. Pavel Savicka in 7th place. Thilo Goss in 8th position. And of the finishers, the only one left on the lead lap was Antonio Duarte. Ravi Ramney, the last driver to take the checkered flag, in 10th and a lap down. Unfortunately, bad reading for WNS Motorsport. Both Joachim Bolting and Tim Horrell failing to reach the checkered flag in that race with damage to their cars. Let's go then to the podium, where Andy McEwen is waiting for us.
Thank you, Adam. Yes, let's get our second podium presentation of the day underway, and we will start with our club class competitors, and we'll start then with our third place club class finisher, Antonio Duarte. Antonio is here. I'll go and get him. Where's Antonio? Come on, Antonio, it's your Antonio out, there we go. Third step of the podium, Antonio Duarte heads on to the podium. Second position in the club category, Thilo Goss. All of the drivers are huddled out of the wind inside the building, where I don't think they can hear me. With the podiums, right then, and now it's your turn. Gonzalo Vega, our class winner in the club category, and also part-time podium organizer as well. So Antonio, Thilo and Gonzalo will be celebrating on the podium. The trophies are ready to be handed out, so we've got Marcus and Sergio from GEDLICH and Florencio Caso from Pirelli on hand to hand out the trophies to our podium finishers. as the sun now really does start to shine down on the Estoril circuit, and the track dries quite quickly. Quite a few drivers saying that their tyres really had gone well past their best by the end of that race, but the drivers held on well to get the podium finishes, particularly a charging Gonçalo Veiga in the Zoom Racing McLaren, who we will have a chat with in a moment or two. Gonçalo, celebrating the win already, Gonçalo. That was a really hard-fought race. You seemed a lot more confident than everybody else, though.
I do like driving in the rain. These mixed conditions are perfect for me. I come from the Caterhams. It's my first race in the GT, but I like it. I like to arrive like this. So.
You were on the edge of disaster a few times, though. You were right out over those curbs. Were there any moments where you thought maybe you'd gone too far?
No, it's my style of driving. Everyone in the paddock knows me by now. I drive in the limit, but I know where the limit is. So I was just trying to feel the grip to find a way to pass him.
Well, we enjoyed watching it. Congratulations, Gonçalo Veiga, our club class winner in the first GT4 Winter Series race of the weekend. Cayman Trophy winner is the next driver that we'll get out. Big cheer, everyone, please, for our Cayman Trophy winner, Frans Linden. Congratulations, Frans, who managed...
Looks like we might have lost Andy down there on the podium in the middle of that presentation, but hopefully we can go back down there in just a few moments. In fact, yes, we can. Let's go back.
Let's have a little word with Frans Linden. Frans, congratulations. A really good overall result that. You must be very happy.
Extremely unexpected, but also extremely happy because it's my first P3 overall at all.
Wow.
Was totally unexpected, but sometimes you have to be at the right place at the right time. So 3 guys were just moving track in front of me, and then the rest was still free, and I could bring it home. So perfect result for the first race of this year.
Really well done. Congratulations then, Frans Linden, our Cayman Trophy winner here at Estoril. We move on then now to Pro-Am. Of course, no Am drivers, unfortunately, making it to the end of that race. But in Pro-Am, we start with our third place finisher, Pavel Savička. Congratulations, Pavel. On to the third step of the podium he will go. Second place in Pro-Am, Wilhelm Kuhner. Well done. Second step of the podium for the SR Motorsport by Schnitzelarm Racing driver. The win in Pro-Am, though, he held on right to the end. It is a victory here at Estoril for Bruno Pereira. I won't repeat what Bruno told me about his tyres as he came up onto the podium off mic. They were certainly past their best, is what he was saying to me. And he managed to just about rest. Really did look like it was becoming a bit of a handful in the closing stages. Another round of applause then for the crowd down below. The photos will be taken of the drivers all gathered together on the top step, and then we will have a chat with Bruno, who really held on nicely there at the end. Bruno, let's have a quick chat if we can. I won't get you to repeat exactly what you told me about your tyres, but they were past their best, weren't they?
Yes, they were. Yes, they were. The last few laps. If the race had another 5 laps, I would have been in serious trouble. We used tyres, and but we made it. We made it.
And of course the track drying out maybe quicker than anybody else expected. Just how tough is it to hang on, especially through some of those low speed corners?
You're gone.
Well, you didn't, thankfully. Congratulations on the class win then. It is Bruno Pereira who gets the win in the Pro-Am category. And we'll now move on then to our final podium presentation of the GT4 Winter Series first race of the weekend, the Pro class. Just 2 drivers to welcome to the podium. Second place in the Pro class, Tom Pappenberg. A hugely impressive performance that from Tom, the youngster in his first race, managing to get second. Racing. First place for Enrico Federer. Well done, Enrico. He has a beaming smile on his face, shakes the hand of Tom Pappenberg, who of course, suffered that little bit of damage to the back of his Mercedes AMG GT4. Without that, perhaps he would have been able to give Enrico something to think about, but it was a pretty straightforward drive in the end for the SR Motorsport driver, and he is going to be very, very pleased with that. Some valuable points scored, and of course lots of his full season rivals not able to make the finish, so that will certainly benefit him and the team in the championship conversation. So that is our GT4 Winter Series podium completed. We move on now then to the GT Winter Series, our final race of the day.
Nexano, on the path to becoming the world's largest independent business community. We connect entrepreneurs, experts, and decision makers across industries and across borders. In our digital ecosystem, people share knowledge, learn from each other, and grow together. Companies and talents gain access to relevant contacts, resources, and innovative projects. Our community stands for transparency, trust, and sustainable economic success. We create space for inspiration, collaboration, and new business models. Nexano, shaping the future of business networking, global, digital, and accessible to everyone.
So then, it's time for the supercars, driven by some superstars. It's the GT Winter Series with their first sprint race of 30 minutes in length. The question is, will they or won't they decide to play with slick tyres? I suspect it's a little bit too soon, looking at that run down to the first corner, but certainly there are tempting dry patches making themselves known around the circuit. It's a healthy mix of GT3 entries once again. I believe it's 9 cars in the class this weekend from a total of 16 entries, so the GT3s once again dominating proceedings by numbers, but we've got an interloper on the front row of the grid. Felix Hirsiger in the Liquimoli Team Engstler car, lining up second on the grid in a Ferrari 296 Challenge car. The 296 Challenge cars took 2 wins last year here at Circuito Estoril. We know the cars can be effective at this circuit and in these conditions. A quick note, Felix Hirsiger, yes, he's here this weekend. He didn't know either until yesterday. Hopped on a plane first thing in the morning, replacing Friedrich Müller for this weekend in the 155 Liquimoli Team Engstler entry. If you're not familiar with the name, he is the reigning Trofeo Pirelli Ferrari Challenge Europe champion. Trofeo Pirelli is their top division. That's where we've seen drivers like Dorian Pain and Nicholas Nielsen win titles. He's a very handy driver as well, the Swiss, and seeing him on this grid interloping among the GT3s, I think is going to be a very interesting storyline.
Indeed it will, absolutely, and it's one of the fascinating things of the GT Winter Series campaign, isn't it? Because we do get some full season entrants, and they of course are the teams fighting for a championship, but then other teams, other drivers come and go over the course of the Winter Series itself. So yeah, a couple of those up near the front of the grid and potentially going to start taking points off those who are fighting for a championship. But yeah, fascinating race in prospect here, I think. And Adam, you touched on it just then. I think the main reason for the interest coming into this race is the tyre choice. I just had a conversation with someone up on the podium about exactly this. Right now, maybe the slick tyre, well, there's no maybe about it, the slick tyre would be a bit of a risk. In 10 minutes' time, I think the slick tyre is the only option that you really will want.
And they haven't even been released out onto the grid yet. I think by the time they are, by the time they've done a tour, it's going to be almost dry, so it's going to be interesting to see what they do. We have a new car towards the front of the field for this weekend in the GT3 category. That is the Vincenzo Sospiri Racing Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo 2, being piloted by Mattia Michelotto and Ignazio Zanon. They are the reigning Italian GT Championship Pro-Am Sprint title holders, and I was lucky enough to catch up with Ignazio Zanon yesterday in the paddock. For the first time in the GT3 class, at least, we're welcoming Vincenzo Sospiri Racing into the GT Winter Series. This is one of their drivers for this weekend, Ignazio Zanon. I always French that up, Zanon. But it's a new challenge for you, I suppose. You've got a more international grid. You won the Pro-Am class of Italian GT Sprint last year. But how are you thinking, or how are you feeling about this grid?
I think it's a very competitive grid. As you say, it's a new challenge, a new track to learn, tricky conditions as well in the rain, so not easy, but it's a challenge I'm looking forward to. It's a good way to keep yourself busy in the off-season and have some fun.
And you're very familiar with the car at this point. You've done a lot of years in the GT3 spec Lamborghini. Of course, they've got the Temerario coming. I wonder, have you had a go yet in that car?
I haven't, but yeah, this year I'm probably going to be racing still in the GT4 Huracan, but maybe next year, hopefully, should be the Temerario.
And we've already discussed, of course, Italian GT, which is a hugely competitive field, and you did a great job winning the Pro-Am title there. Coming here to Estoril, coming here to race against teams from across Europe, is that maybe an indication of your goals going forward?
Yeah, for sure. You know, the goal is always to race in Europe, because we conquered the championship in Italy, and so you always look forward. You want to be competitive in Europe and win the important races like the 24 hours. So, of course, the goal is to come here, see where you are in comparison to other teams, European teams, and do well.
Now, I know that you, of course, raced Ginettas in the UK, and you were studying in the UK as well. Where did the love for racing come in? At what point did it hit you? Because I don't believe, if I'm mistaken, you didn't do too much karting or anything before Ginettas.
Yeah, exactly. I did no karting. It was a late blooming passion, let's say, but it came from my grandfather, who was very passionate about racing, Formula One, and my grandma always used to tell you stories about my grandfather going to races, following drivers. So once I tried to figure out what I really wanted to do in life, racing was the only answer for me. So while I was studying at university, I started racing with Ginetta in the UK, all around the UK, which is quite useful in these days because it's raining quite a lot. So it's quite useful for me here. I'm using what I've learned in the UK here, so that's where the passion really started.
Now, I know you're here for Estoril with VSR. Are you anticipating that, at least within the Winter Series, is this a one-off weekend, or do you think we might see you again?
The plan is to be a one-off, you know, just to keep yourself warm in the off-season, but you never know. You know, if the budget comes up, I would love to be back in maybe Barcelona and get to learn the track there, but we still have to see.
Okay, well, we'll keep our fingers crossed for that. We're excited to see how you do this weekend, and we wish you all the luck.
Thank you.
So then we'll see how that car performs. The number 66 car lining up on pole position with that man Ignazio Zanon at the wheel. So he seemed fairly confident, tentatively confident yesterday, and sure enough he is on pole position for this race. But with that X factor that is the Ferrari 296 Challenge car waiting in the wings, the power difference between a GT3 car and SRO BOP versus the Ferrari Challenge, of course it depends which GT3 car you're dealing with, but it is well over 100 horsepower, closer to 150 horsepower in most cases. So that Ferrari, even though I think will probably be doing a single file start, I'm not quite certain which way we're going for that, but even if it is a single file start, that Ferrari has the potential to steam past, or at least steam alongside on the approach to the first corner.
That it certainly does. We're getting a good look here at the middle part of the circuit, seeing how wet or dry it is. It's patchy, but it's definitely more dry than wet. There's a very clear dry line there. The main areas of concern, I think, really are turn 1 and perhaps up here at the Gancho chicane. That often seems to take a little while to dry out. It's a low-speed traction zone as well, so really might struggle on slick tyres through there. But yeah, I think we might see a little bit of activity down on the grid of the tyre changing variety here. There'll be someone who goes for it, and they'll either end up in a gravel trap or on the top step of the podium, I suspect.
I'm thinking, honestly, that more people are going to go for slicks than not. There are, yes, patches. We just saw a prime example there out of the S's into Parabolica Ayrton Senna, but in 20 minutes' time, these tyres are going to be getting eaten alive by a dry surface if they are wet tyres. So I think even if your driver is maybe a bit less experienced, playing the long game with them and getting them on the slicks is probably the right decision. But of course you want them to have that confidence in the early minutes. Moreover, you want them and the car to survive through the early minutes. So I can understand if people do go towards wets. I'm just not necessarily expecting that many people will, but we'll have to wait and see. I suspect quite a few cars will be going up on jacks, and sure enough I can already see SR Motorsport by Schnitzelbaum with some activity at their wheel arches. So I think we are going to see a flurry here of tyre changes. We look there with Alexei Koreshko in the up to race entered car, the number 88 Cup 2 Porsche. Only a couple of cars in that Cup 2 class this weekend, but Cup 2, of course, is always a point of interest with those Porsche 992 GT3 Cups, and especially given in these weather conditions, the power disadvantage that the Porsche Cup car has over just about everything else is somewhat nullified by its prowess in the corners.
Yes, exactly so. It's always a fascinating mix. It always seems to happen here at Estoril that there's more mixing of the classes than anywhere else. I recall this from the 2025 season opener, where of course we had quite a lot of the Cup class cars, if you like, getting in on the action and fighting for overall race victories. Dexter Mueller here, starting 6th on the grid in the Mercedes, the AMG GT3. We just saw a win for Mercedes in the GT4 race earlier on, and there are a couple of quick Mercedes, of course, on this grid as well. And yeah, some cars up on jacks, not all of them. Interestingly, Felix Hersiger in his Liquimoly Team Engsler car, I don't think that car's been up on the jacks yet, so perhaps they're just waiting a little while before making that final decision. Of course, you have got to be careful, though. We saw a couple of teams getting in hot water a week ago at Portimao for leaving that too late and making the decision too late, because you have to be down off the jacks, the crew have to be off the grid by a certain time, and so if you aren't, you can pick up a penalty. So if they can wait maybe a minute or two longer to make this choice on tyres, but not too much longer than that. Right, let's get down there and get some answers to our tyre-related questions, if possible. Izzy, I can see, is in position.
I certainly am in position. We actually don't have our pole sitter yet, but we are going to continue down the grid anyway, and I do want to show you as many tyres as possible. We do have our P2 pole sitter is just rolling in now. P2 is on slick, so I'm going to grab a quick chat though with Felix. Felix, great to see you. First of all, welcome to the grid. I don't think you were expecting to be driving this weekend until yesterday.
No, not really. So very happy about the late call from Engsler, and very happy about the qualifyings as well. I mean, we showed that we have great pace, and now we hope to convert that into a very good team result as well.
And you've gone for the slick tyres, looking pretty dry around the track then?
Yeah, it does at the moment. Just the last part is a little bit damp, but we saw today that it can change rather quickly. So we'll see. We're on the safe side with slicks for sure. I think everybody does. So and then we'll see how the race goes.
Right, best of luck. Right, we're going to continue because I do want to show you as many tyres as possible. The pole sitter has rolled in on the slick tyres, as Adam and Andy said, a new entry this weekend, and this is going to be a very intriguing start to the race. But as Felix just told me, so it's sounding like some parts of the track still are a little bit wet, but slicks is the way to go. And the number 19 also on the slick tyres. The number 11 of Kenneth Heyer also on the slick tyres. And boys, I think that's going to be the story all the way up and down the grid. But I will continue just so that you get to see as many as possible. We've got 3 minutes left. So yeah, the number 67 also on the slick tyres. Dexter Muller alongside also on the slick tyres. I'm going to see if I can get right the way down the grid. We might have to walk quite fast. Sorry to cameraman Herbie, who has done a great job all day. The number 333 also on the slick tyres. Slick tyres on Alfredo Hernandez car. Yet to see some wet tyres. There were 1 or 2 that did leave the pit lane on the wet tyres, but now, boys, I'm seeing all up and down the grid, it is slick tyres. If Herbie just points the camera down, you can see the drying line. So there definitely is a drying line on this start-finish straight. There are some damp patches, so it's going to be a tricky couple of opening laps. But for now, it definitely does seem like slick tyres is the way to go, and that is indeed what everybody has chosen. The Porsche Cup car alongside is on the slick tyres, although they have just covered a little bit, but they are on the slick tyres as well. And as we head towards the very back of the grid, it is indeed slick tyres for absolutely everyone on the grid, boys.
So the cars will soon be rolling on what will be a singular formation lap here for the GT Winter Series. So then, the cars should roll in the next minute or two. It will be a 2x2 formation lap with a single formation lap with a 2x2 rolling start. So then, we will watch with interest, I feel, the outside of row number 1, because Felix Hirschiger, with the power advantage, with an experienced hand in that car as well. Ignazio Zanon, though, will be the pole sitter. He'll be looking to try and best Felix Hirschiger in these conditions. It will be a bit slippery out there on the track. Can the Ferrari get to the front is the big question. Row 2 of the grid, all GT3 affair. It is Kenneth Heyer in the SR Motorsport by Schnitzelau Mercedes. He is alongside Jonas Karklees, the Lithuanian racer, in the Liqui Team Engstler Lamborghini. 2 Engstler cars in the first 2 rows. Simon Orange for Orange Racing by JMH. Rather bluntly told me that he was quicker than Marcus in some of the wet conditions during the Thursday and Friday practices. Marcus, my source for that is Simon, please refer to him. Dexter Muller, row 3 of the grid in 6th position in the CBRX by SPS Mercedes. Row 4 of the grid, 7th position. Alfredo Hernandez in the Grupo Prom Racing team Mercedes. Alessia Ruffini is next in the Cup 4 Lamborghini. Those cars are often fairly sure-footed in these kind of conditions as well. Petar Matic in 9th place in the other Lamborghini from the Cup 4 class and Autosport Racing. Lucas Azato rounding out the top 10 in the Kessel Racing number 13 entry. That's the Cup 1 Ferrari Challenge car. And then in 11th position, it is Alexei Kikareshko, the PT Sports by Up to race driver with a significant background in rallying. Will that serve him well today? Severin Mazur in the newly purchased Sendom Racing team Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo 1. I'll tell you a bit more about that car later on in the race. Joseph Dean in 13th position. He is alongside Igor Klaya on row 7 of the grid. Andre Fernandez lining up 15th in the green Porsche from the AF Motorsport crew, although I didn't see whether that car was actually there or not. It usually catches my eye, but I didn't spot it there. Przemysław Bienkowski in 16th place, rounding out the order, the PTT Racing Team entry. That, of course, being a Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo. Shota Akazawa is not here this weekend after all. Was meant to be on the entry list, but ultimately he abstained. So it does look like we are missing Andre Fernandez, actually, in the AF Motorsport Porsche 991.2 GT3R, which is very unfortunate. Cloudy conditions out there on the circuit. Hopefully it stays this way or better, because just about everyone, in fact everyone, is out there on slick tyres. It's going to be a slippery run down to the first corner though, Andy. They're going to have to watch themselves.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous about that braking point for turn 1. I mean, I always am here at Estoril. It is a pinch point, and that was contact already, was it, between Zanon and Hirsiger. Hirsiger slithering into the side of the Lamborghini there as they're lining up 2 by 2 for the race start. So that goes to show just how snappy these cars can be on a cold, slick tyre on a damp circuit. So yeah, hold on to your hats, everyone. This could be a lively opening lap.
The GT Winter Series will close out day 1 of the action here at Estoril in the GEDLICH Racing Winter Series paddock. 16 cars set to take the start. Who will be first down to the first corner? Hirsiger with the power advantage in the blue and white Ferrari. Ignazio Zanon in the Lamborghini with the inside line, but that's looking kind of slippery. We'll see who gets there first. We're underway, we're racing, and it is predictably Felix Hirsiger who pulls ahead on the run down to the first corner. He'll have the inside line, he'll have the advantage under braking into turn 1, but Zanon with the downforce advantage will look to make up time in the following corners. Dexter Muller in a spin. Petar Matic was a bit late on the brakes as well on the inside in the Lamborghini, but Dexter Muller unfortunately dropping to the rear of the field through the following corners. Again, some tentative approaches, some wiggling, slick tyres on a damp track. You've got to be careful. Severin Mazur, though, gets right past Alfredo Hernandez. He had confidence with his left foot and got himself stopped to the corner.
Well, I'm not entirely sure how everyone missed Dexter Muller's car as it was stranded in the middle of the road. That could have been pretty significant, but thankfully he's been able to continue, I believe, undamaged. This then the battle towards the front of the field, though, and a dive up the inside. No, not quite close enough into the Parabolica interior. What about on the exit? Kenneth Heyer then coming under threat here as they accelerate uphill and head towards the right-hander at turn number 7. That is Jonas Karklis's Liquimoli liveried Lamborghini. He was in a spin in one of the races at Portimao a week ago and looking to put what was actually a challenging opening weekend of the season firmly behind him.
Petar Matic has put on a blinder in this first lap of the race. Not only does he lead Cup 4, I think he's 5th overall in the Super Trofeo Spec Lamborghini. Yes, he is. Matic, who we've seen kind of develop and learn this car in the Winter Series over the last couple of years. Once again, the experience of coming down here to Iberia, figuring out all of the different conditions that get thrown at us, seem to be paying off because he's had a very confident start in the wet. And at the front of the field, Ignazio Zanon was right on the back of the Ferrari Challenge car, but then 700 horsepower is unleashed by the Trofeo Pirelli Ferrari Challenge Europe champion, and by the time they get to turn 1, Felix Hirsiger has gained a good couple of car lengths.
Oh, it's one of those proper GT Winter Series cat and mouse battles, this, isn't it? The GT3 cars better through the corners, bit more downforce, a bit more user-friendly maybe, but then you've got the Ferrari, which is just absolutely ballistic in a straight line, and that is going to make it a difficult car to overtake, I think. But yeah, Ignacio Zanon is well and truly up for the fight here, learning the car himself still, of course. Got a yellow flag, I believe, at turn 2, and this, I think, is why, isn't it? This is the 66 car that's off the road. No, sorry, 333, I beg your pardon. Off the road or on the road. And the 13 is very much off the road in the gravel trap, so that's been a drama at turn 2.
That's in the same place, both cars there. They must have had a collision. The safety car is out on the circuit. The 66 is still on the road, just to confirm. That is Ignacio Zanon, so he's still there. But we now have the race neutralised. We'll have to see what happened there between Azato and Alessio Raffini. So Raffini, unfortunately, not having the best start to his weekend. Had some strife as well at Portimao as well. And now, of course, with competition in the Cup 4 class in the form of this man on screen, Petar Matic, he's now dropping points in the title that he and Milos Pavlovic are hoping to defend.
Indeed, so Petar Matic really caught my eye at the start. He went right to the inside on the wettest piece of racetrack into turn 1, and I thought, oh, he might not stop that car, but he did stop it, thankfully. Managed to overtake about 3 or 4 people in the process, so he was well and truly up for the fight, and this safety car, of course, brings him right onto terms now with the leading contenders, so he might yet make more progress in another car that, as we know, tends to do quite well in a straight line. So Hirsiger leads them with Ignacio Zanon second, but as we saw, very much going with him before the safety car interruption. He leads GT3 with Kenneth Heyer third. Overall, second in GT3. Cup 4 led by, as we said, Petar Matic. Here's a replay of the start. And Dexter Mueller, I think, did that all by himself. I didn't see any contact. Just lost the rear of the car under braking and had that awkward half spin. And that's when everything seems to flash in front of you as a driver, because you just don't know if everybody else is going to avoid you, and your fate lies entirely in their hands. Thankfully, crisis averted, and he was able to carry on.
Alessio Raffini there, I think, was trying to pull out in front of the safety car to stay on the lead lap. I think that was a little bit of gamesmanship there, and the marshal said no. Look at that, that's a busting a move if ever I've seen it there from the marshal in front of the Lamborghini, but just making sure everyone stays to the right of the car. Dexter Muller has got some work to do, hasn't he, from now within the top 10, 9th overall in the CBRX by SPS car, but he will mostly just be thankful that losing that traction into the first corner, having a spin of his own making, didn't result in being in the firing line. He just pulled a few feet further back than I think either of us thought initially, and thankfully that meant he was off the apex.
Indeed so. We've seen some quite expensive repair bills caused by that first corner over the years, and thankfully that's avoided by Dexter, and indeed crucially by the rest of the cars that came blasting past him. So Hirsiger weaving around, warming the tyres up. As we know, they're all on slick tyres, so they don't want to lose any temperature if they can help it. There is Alessio Raffini's car being driven off the circuit now, so actually he's not going to be able to take any further part in the race anyway. And yeah, another team then with some work to do overnight to prepare that car for the races tomorrow. Two races scheduled, of course, for the Sunday, as always, in GT Winter Series. Simon Orange made up a few positions as well, I think. In fact, no, sorry, lost a position, started 5th. He is now 6th overall. See him weaving around there in the blue and orange McLaren. And Dexter Muller there, actually. So Dexter isn't anything like as far down the order as I expected him to be after only a couple of laps of racing. 9th position, and he's definitely going to be one to watch on the restart.
Yeah, he's been on the ascendancy. The restart is coming. Safety car will come in this time by... And again, I imagine that Felix Hirsiger is going to play his role to perfection here. The thing to do, I suppose, would be to wait until he's got the thing pointed in a straight line and just go for it. Although, of course, Zanon cannot overtake the Ferrari 296 Challenge around the final corner, even if he has the pace advantage. We saw there Lucas Azato back in the pit, so the Kessel Racing team has received the stricken fellow Ferrari 296 Challenge car, but that's no concern for Hirsiger, who is at the front of the field, controlling a field at least largely comprised of GT3s in his rear rear view mirror. He launches the car away when he knows he can bury the foot in it, and he will now fly down the main straight. And look at that gap just growing and growing some more as they run down to the first braking zone of the lap. Kenneth Heyer looking a little bit feisty. Jonas Karklis looking feistier still on the damp patch on the inside of the first corner. Will he get it stopped? Not quite, unfortunately. Jonas Karklis is stricken in the middle of the road, and it looks like everyone's done a good job there of avoiding him, but Karklis is now going to have to work from the very rear of the field. Meanwhile, Petar Matic has dropped back there. He's fallen behind Dexter Muller and Kikareshko as well in the first of the Cup 2 Porsches. So after a flying start, the other Cup 4 Lamborghini, Petar Matic, is falling back, and it looks like Kikareshko there with a handful of opposite lock. He gives deference there to Dexter Muller, who's now got himself all the way up to 5th overall.
Yeah, so the comeback drive is off to a really good start for Dexter. He'll now start chasing after some of his GT3 class rivals ahead. Big dive up the inside there. Petar Matic will take that position back away from the struggling Kikareshko, seemingly, with Severin Mazur in the all-black Lamborghini going through as well. So the Porsche struggling a little, it seems, to maybe get those tyres switched back on again after the safety car period, and starts to slip down the order a little bit. Hirsiger then continuing to pull away out in front. A fascinating GT3 battle going on behind him. And in the midfield, Adam, it is every driver for themselves. This is proper battling on a circuit where overtaking isn't always the easiest of things to do, but they're doing a pretty good job of it so far.
Absolutely. Severin Mazur then, with a bit of a move there on Petar Matic, as Matic was struggling for grip. Sidestepping all of that goes Severin Mazur, and he continues to work his way up the field in his newly purchased GT3 spec car. Of course, we've seen him previously in Super Trofeo machinery. There is Jonas Karklis working his way past Przemysław Bienkowski. That's for P10. He's now back into the overall top 10 in the race, but will still be rather frustrated with falling down that far to begin with. Lucas Azato coming out of the pit lane as well, albeit a couple of laps down, as Alfredo Hernandez now gets himself past Kikareshko, who really does appear to be having some issues with the car underneath him in these conditions. At the front of the field, though, it is Felix Hirsiger by a second at the line, but that, of course, will come down here through the middle sector. The Ferrari will lose out to the GT3 spec Lamborghini all the way through the twisty section of this track, as we watch again the Cup cars falling through the field, which could be an interesting point as well against Hirsiger, because we are seeing his Cup comrades losing out to the GT3s, and we're seeing Jonas Karklis put on a stormer of a lap. He's now up to 7th overall, past Matic, past Karklis in the last few moments.
That was really confident stuff as well under braking. He ran down the wet side of the road. The car was twitching around a little bit, but found a dry patch under braking and managed to make the move stick. So yeah, Jonas Karklis really fired up, I would imagine, after that spin earlier on, and managing now to regain a bit of the lost ground. There is Alfredo Hernandez in the Mercedes-AMG GT3, the Grupo Prom Racing Team example. Very good looking car, that is. These are your leaders, though, and it's sort of exactly the same situation we had before the safety car period. Hirsiger being chased by Zanon, but a bigger gap between them now. So since the restart, Felix Hirsiger, whose Ferrari was a little bit leery under braking for turn 1, does now seem the quicker of the two, doesn't he?
Yeah, this is a really interesting case study, Hirsiger versus Zanon. Two different backgrounds. Zanon is not necessarily a pro driver. In fact, he is the AM of this setup, if I'm not mistaken, in this car in Italian GT, where they share together as a pro-am duo. But Michelotto, of course, a very quick driver as well. What we're seeing is two quick drivers at the sharp end, one in a Cup 1 Ferrari 296 Challenge, the other in a GT3 Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo 2. So I think this is a really fascinating scrap, because yes, we've seen this, as you put it, Andy, classic GT Winter Series dynamic before, often between AM drivers, but we've got two borderline pros, and we've got Igor Klyer, who has found the barrier there somewhere on the approach to turn 2. And the PTT Racing Porsche, I'm afraid, is stranded in the middle of the road, and inevitably the safety car has come out. And while that's going on, Severin Mazur slowing down. Now, those two were not on the same piece of tarmac, nowhere near it, in fact, so I don't think there was an issue or at least an issue between the two of them, but it looks as though Severin Mazur's Lamborghini is off the pace a bit there, whether he's just reacting to the safety car more so than the other people, I wonder.
Yeah, he seemed to slow as the safety car boards went out, but whether that was the reason for him slowing, I don't know. Replay here then of what happened. Oh, that's a very bizarre way to lose control, and a huge hit into the barriers. It pops the door open there. Igor Klyer, that will have rattled him around a little bit, but very odd the way that the car snapped left there, almost as if something broke. But yeah, exactly what caused that, I don't know.
It would be odd if it wasn't for all the damp patches.
Yeah,
I think
true.
Slick tyres with 510 odd horsepower, I can understand how it came to be, but yes, maybe there is greater mitigating circumstances than simply what we have in front of us. Either way, we saw Klyer moving after the crash as well, and that was a hefty impact. Severin Mazur. Is that a puncture rather than an engine? No, it is an engine, isn't it? Something has gone very wrong with the 5.2 litre V10, and that is going to be very frustrating for the Polish racer.
It is, so you were right, it was an issue rather than him reacting to the safety car, and he looked like he had no power at all, just coasting into the pit lane. Let's hope that hasn't left any fluid down on the circuit. He won't necessarily be prioritising that thought right now, but the other drivers will thank him for having stayed off the racing line, hopefully, just in case that's what was going on. So, drama aplenty then in the middle part of this GT Winter Series race, and the safety car picking up the race leaders, and yeah, there is the Lamborghini, which is not going to make it into the pit lane. That will only now further delay a return to racing, of course.
Yes, it will. That's very unfortunate. That's one of two cars that they have here this weekend, though. There is an Evo 2 spec GT3 Lamborghini also on site with the team. No, that was a tyre very much coming off the car, so I did think it looked like something was wrong with the rear right corner.
Wow.
Hence I didn't immediately say engine, but that's the most smoke I've ever seen a tyre produce, and in the weirdest circumstances I've ever seen. It looked like the tyre was just parting with the tyre and the rim were parting with the car.
Yeah, it was the whole wheel assembly, wasn't it, has come loose, so that it could have been a failure. This deep into the race, you would imagine something has failed. If it had been loose from the start, that potentially would have been a situation that arose a little bit earlier. But anyway, yeah, dramatic. Good news, though, in a way, because that's probably a simpler and less expensive fix than a new engine, I would imagine. I haven't run the costs but on a calculator, but I'm fairly sure that's the case. So could have been a lot worse, and at least it happened at relatively low speed.
Absolutely. We also saw Andre Fernandez joining the race, albeit quite a lot later. He joked to me about maybe just staying in the hotel over the weekend after how wet it was on Thursday and Friday. I wonder if it was a late call to return back to the circuit from Andre Fernandez. He is now out there on the circuit in the Porsche 991.2 GT3R, but of course this many laps down, he will not be a factor in the battles. As I said, if they do need it, they do have an Evo 2 spec Huracan there for Severin Mazur as well, but I suspect whatever failure that was, perhaps wheel nut or something like that, it shouldn't be too major. Interestingly, actually, you and I, Andy, are both probably familiar with the Lamborghini that Severin Mazur is racing, because in a previous life, in fact its most recent life before being handed over to Severin Mazur, it was racing in the GT Cup UK Championship with Paul Bailey and David Brabham. It was the stand-in car when the Brabham BT62 was having issues, and for much of last year it was their official car, or 2024 it was their official car. It's now been handed over to Severin Mazur, who thought only AMS had driven the car previously, and I had to tell him, well, actually David Brabham's driven this one a few times, so that was news to him. A nice little nugget of information for him.
Oh, excellent. Well, there you go. If I ever had the time, and I really don't, but if I ever had the time, I'd love to do a bit of a deep dive into the history of some of these cars, because most of them have had multiple let's say, careful owners. And yeah, they some of them I'm sure have popped up in rather interesting places. And as I'm saying this, Adam, I'm realising you probably have at some point done at least some research similar to that. It's a fascinating subject, isn't it? The way that GT3 racing in particular has exploded all over the world now. And yeah, seeing where some of these cars have raced previously is an interesting way to lose an afternoon one day, I suspect.
An afternoon. Felix Hirsiger continues to lead the field then under safety car conditions. We're yet to get any indication the safety car will be in anytime soon. Of course, we saw the Porsche still stranded on the inside of turn 2 a few moments ago. And will the Lamborghini still be there? I did hear a V10 firing up just a few moments ago. Okay, I didn't realise this was a problem. The safety car has caught the back half of the field. Everyone from 8th place Petar Matic down is behind the safety car on the main straight, so they're going to need to get waved by. Well, that's a slight added twist that I had hitherto not been aware of, and well, they're going to need to get those cars waved by fairly quickly, but I suspect they'll wait until after turn 2, where there's a stricken Porsche, to do it.
Yes, I was a little confused that we hadn't actually seen the safety car
was
at any
thinking
point during this safety car period. This now at least gives us an answer to that question. That is, of course, the reason that we have this safety car. Well, one of the reasons, as it turns out, because we also have a Lamborghini that is stuck in the pit lane entry. So plenty of work for the marshals and recovery crews to do. A little bit of organisational work between race control and safety car driver required. It's going to be a real sprint to the checkered flag, I think, if and when we go racing again.
Yes, hopefully it is a when, but yeah, it's been a day that's thrown obstacles at us at just about every juncture, whether it's from the sky, whether it's from race control. There's all sorts of stuff going on today. But Felix Hirsiger, I think, will be keen to get this race back underway. He'd be keen to try and effectively be at racing speed for as much of this as possible, because I think there is an amount of bragging rights when you're in a cup car against GT3s to say, look, I did it, beat everyone, easy. Certainly not easy. Interestingly, in races at Monza, for example, where we mix Cup and GT3 cars in other championships, we do actually see the Cup cars, even with effectively equal drivers, going quicker than the GT3s. Here at Estoril, that's not necessarily in the script, but that's what we're seeing at the moment. And of course, when you have the likes of Jamo Hartling and Marcus Clutton in the car against Hirsiger tomorrow, that's going to be really interesting.
I do seem to recall, I know it's Cup 4, not Cup 1, but I seem to recall Severin Mazur putting in a starring performance here a year ago, and very much taking the fight to the GT3 cars, if not beating them in one of the races, I seem to recall. So
Cup cars won every race here at Estoril last year. It was Severin Mazur in race 1, and then 2 Cup class Ferrari wins on the Sunday here at Estoril, albeit with conditions and other mitigating circumstances at play. And in fact, GT3 Poland and Lamborghini with Super Trofeo cars won the 2024 and 25 season opening races in the GT Winter Series. So it is actually a bit of a tradition for race 1 to fall the way of a Cup car. We'll see whether that tradition continues. It looks at the moment like we've got a Cup car in the lead, but we don't. That's Petar Matic, who is a lap down and really needs to be waved by at some point. But I think probably the reason they're not doing that is because, again, they haven't recovered Igor Klajer's car yet, and they don't want to risk these drivers that are caught a lap down effectively right now from, you know, having a moment around the proximity of that incident.
Yeah, indeed. So, weather report there says that it's cloudy but not raining. I agree. It is cloudy. It is not raining. The sun is actually shining through the clouds, turning into quite a nice evening. Hopefully we've had the worst of the weather, although we do believe there is more coming tomorrow. But for now, we have a drying circuit. Of course, tyre temperatures will be dipping now. They've been behind the safety car for a little while. And that's why, of course, you see the drivers weaving side to side, stamping on the brakes a bit to generate some core temperature in the tyre that radiates out from the brake discs in particular. But yeah, when we do go racing again, it will be a challenging situation to once again spot that braking point into turn 1 and get the car through the corner on now. Cold tyres and cold brakes. We've got 8 3/4 minutes to go. And it is Felix Hirsiger who leads overall, leads in Cup 1 as well. GT3 led by Ignacio Zanon in his GT3 Lamborghini Huracan. Cup 4 led by Petar Matic. And the only Cup 4 runner still going, of course, with the demise of Alessio Raffini earlier on. Cup 2, I should say, led by Alexei Kikireshko, who had a really strong weekend at Portimao in Cup 2 as well a week ago. He's continuing that form very much into Estoril. So, we are in a bit of a holding pattern now, aren't we? The recovery is nearly done, so one would hope that this wave by will follow fairly soon after, but whether they then wait for everybody to catch back up to the tail of the queue before restarting awaits to be seen. If that's the case, I think it's going to be a real sprint to the flag with not a huge amount of time remaining. We're inside the final 8 minutes of the race, of course. We are fast running out of time. Got to look there at the 17 car. That was the Andre Fernandez Porsche, the GT3 spec AF Motorsport Porsche, which, as we saw, was a late starter. And, well, even a broken clock is right twice a day. They have now done the wave through, and the safety car pulls to one side, and they will now pick up the race leader as soon as they can.
You caught me off guard with that one, Andy. Well, yes, I can understand why they wanted to wait until they'd seen the Clio car was all but recovered before they did the release. The real question is, how did the field end up split in twain to begin with? But we've now solved some of these problems, and hopefully in the next few moments we will get a bulletin say safety car in this lap, although I know sometimes we like to bunch everyone back together before we do that. So either way, we are going to see some racing here, I think, before the end. However, Felix Hirsiger, I think in a certain regard, will be somewhat relieved maybe not to immediately jump back into the racing, because at the end of the day, he's done this also last minute, so late last notice. He's had barely any time in the slick conditions all week, or well, all Friday, because he wasn't even here on Thursday. So this is all a bit of a learning process, and maybe he wouldn't mind just coasting to the flag. I don't think, though, that's going to be the reality. We will have one more lap by the looks of it behind the safety car, and then he will have to defend from the likes of Zanon, Kenneth Heyer, and indeed Simon Orange. And of course, for Kenneth Heyer, I think there's a measure of a chip on shoulder at the moment, because Jamo Hartling won a race last time at Portimao, but Kenneth's stints were a little bit skew-whiff. He had a big spin in race 1. There was some dramas as well in race 3. Managed to get himself really just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and lost a lot of positions at the hairpin on the first lap of the race in race 3, the pit stop race. So Kenneth will be keen to have a better run of things this time here at Estoril, a circuit where historically he does do quite well. And well, with this safety car bunching things up, and with a Ferrari challenge car with less aero maybe pushing the Lamborghini towards Kenneth Heyer, he might fancy himself for, at the very least, a GT3 class win. Yeah, I think the restart is going to be crucial here, isn't it? Because really, Felix Hirsiger, a lot of the gap that he built up on that previous stint, if you like, was all generated off the restart. He went quite early, maximised the straight line speed advantage of the Ferrari Cup 1 car, and it meant that Ignacio Zanon, who was very quick through the rest of the first sector, just wasn't able to get within striking range. Well, if Zanon can have a slightly better restart this time, anticipate perhaps what Hirsiger is going to do, then maybe there's a chance that he could have a pop at the Ferrari challenge car in the first couple of corners. That could then, of course, as you quite rightly say, have a knock-on impact on the battles within the rest of the GT3 brigade. Simon Orange is definitely going to be keen to have a go at Kenneth Heyer, I think. That's a fascinating battle to enjoy in the closing stages. So, yeah, this race far from over. We should go racing, hopefully, at the end of this lap. And that will leave us at least a couple of laps, yeah, of green flag racing to the flag. So then, Petar Matic in Cup 4 is back to the rear of the field, and that interestingly means that, 8th place down to 12th place will all have nice warm tyres, where everyone else are not stone cold. They're working away at the wheels to try and generate some heat, but someone like Matic may actually now climb back up where previously he was falling down in order to take advantage of those warmer tyres. Safety car is going to be in this lap. We're going to have somewhere in the region of 2 minutes 20, 2 minutes 15 left on the clock, I think, by the time we get there. We will have 2 laps of racing by the looks of it. And Felix Hirschiger will be looking to, once again, nail the restart. He did a good job first time around. And that long straight really does play into his favour, as we saw there. I think Kenneth Heyer almost into the back of Simon Orange as they kind of brake test each other, trying to get the temps up, and that nearly ended in tears.
Yes, that would have been a bit embarrassing, wouldn't it? It wouldn't be the first time I've seen things like that go on behind the safety car, but yeah, they managed to keep their distance for now. Of course, the reason you see that happening, like I said earlier on, they want to stamp on the brakes. That generates more tyre temperature, actually, than weaving around side to side. Weaving warms the outer bit of the surface, that's the word I was looking for, of the tyre, but to get that heat through the core of the tyre, that's why they accelerate and then stamp on the brakes. The brakes operate at such high temperatures, and that radiates out into the rubber, but you're not got your wits about you, that can sometimes lead to calamity. Crisis averted there, though, and we're ready for a restart. Like I said, crucial restart this for Hirschiger and for Zanon. If Zanon's going to have any chance of winning the race outright, and maybe give himself a slightly easier time and not have to defend from Kenneth Heyer, he needs to anticipate this restart a bit better.
He needs to anticipate the restart better, and probably needs to quickly whisk the restrictors out of the engine, to be honest, but we'll wait and see. I'm interested in what Simon Orange can do from here. He's often very good when a race launches into life or back into life. I think he could be the danger man here. And don't forget Jonas Karklees behind Dexter Muller as well, working his way back up after that spin a few laps ago. Let's see, I think we're far from in the final order of this race as we launch into the restart. It will be the 2 laps of racing. It will be, because a 1 minute 40.2 is the best lap. It will just be 2 laps of racing from here to the checkered flag by the narrowest of margins. Hirschiger there dancing under braking as we get back to racing conditions. Then Zanon in 2nd place, Heyer in 3rd place, Orange, Muller and Karklees, the latter of those 2 side by side. Jonas Karklees with the inside line into turn 2. Is he close enough to the Mercedes? The answer is yes, he's through into 5th position. Meanwhile, Simon Orange in the McLaren is right on the rear boot lid of Kenneth Heyer. Heyer not quite able to hold on to Ignacio Zanon at the 3rd corner. He's already fallen back a little bit, and I think Simon Orange may soon be investigating his opportunities.
Yeah, you're right, aren't you? Karklees is the man on the move. That was a lovely move on Dexter Muller, which started at turn 1, when he dived up the inside onto the wet part of the road, exactly how he ended up spinning, of course, off the previous restart. So he's not letting that affect him or knock his confidence one little bit. He closes in now on Simon Orange then. This for 4th position, really for 3rd though, because Heyer is the cork in the bottle a little bit. He's dropping away from Ignacio Zanon, the threat from the other GT3 cars behind. So Karklees then up to 5th. That is 4th, though, crucially in GT3. So if he wants a trophy to take back to his accommodation with him tonight, he needs to gain 1 more position if possible. And it is Simon Orange who he's got well and truly in his sights.
Here is that battle then as they turn through turn 12, and then the Parabolica Ayrton Senna, the 13th and final corner of the lap. Karklees will be looking to set himself up here for a good run. The Lamborghini there on the outside line, the very far outside. He's going to be in the gravel. We need to see the Lamborghini on the exit of the corner. There it is, just streaming through the gravel and the grass. Rejoins, but rejoins several places down, and that is a disaster for the Lithuanian race. Team Enxler will be most disappointed. There's all sorts of grass in the grille as well. And the number 19 driver will not be happy with that one. But Orange now can try and focus on Kenneth Heyer for the last lap of the race. Alfredo Hernandez having a spin. Oh, is he just going to keep it going? Not badly done, sir. Impressed faces from both of us in commentary. He rejoins the race at the back, but frankly, I'm surprised that the car is still moving. At the front of the field, Felix Hirschiger is well comfortable. Zanon looks comfortable in 2nd place as well. This is where the move may come if there is one. Can Simon Orange find a few car lengths in the last corners of the lap? It may be a bridge too far from this far out. but who knows with how this race has gone.
Well, that was remarkable. Simon Orange really pushing on. I'd be fascinated to see exactly how Cascais ended up out in the gravel. Was he squeezed wide, or did he just run himself out of road? I suspect maybe both drivers involved in that might have a different tale to tell. We're right on board here with Dexter Muller. The battle is going on ahead of us, though. Simon Orange is continuing to put the pressure on Kenneth Heyer. There is Kenneth then. The SR Motorsport by Schnitzelalm Racing Mercedes, I think, should be good here for second in class and an outright podium.
Meanwhile, Felix Hirschiger out of the final corner, driven away from everyone in the Cup 1 Ferrari 296 Challenge. That's why he's a champion, and that's why he's a race winner in the GT Winter Series. Liqui Team Extler take it with Felix Hirschiger at the wheel. Ignacio Zanon takes second place and wins in the GT3 category ahead of Kenneth Heyer. Simon Orange, fourth overall in a GT3 podium ahead of Dexter Muller. Jonas Karklees recovers to sixth overall. Petar Matic takes seventh position as well as the Cup 4 win ahead of Przemysław Bienkowski. But what a race that was in terms of twists and turns. We didn't have that much green flag running, but when we did have green flag running, goodness me, was it hectic. Drivers finding those damp patches around the circuit. Undoubtedly, everyone made the right call to be on slicks. But goodness me, was it an uncomfortable ride for quite a few parties in that race. Limited grip out there, but Felix Hirschiger really mastered it in the Ferrari 296 Challenge. Of course, the 296 Challenge car, 700 horsepower. Incredibly advanced traction control, ABS, etc. on that car as well. And more downforce than any other Ferrari Challenge car that's preceded it. So it is closer than ever to a GT3 around the corners, and it's quicker than a GT3 by some margin on the straights. And we really saw an illustration of that in that race. But I am interested to see what Mattia Michelotto and Jamo Hartling do up against Felix Hirschiger tomorrow, because yes, Felix is incredibly fast, but if he can beat pro drivers in a GT3 in a 296 Challenge car around a circuit this twisty, then that tells you a lot about both driver and car in these straight-up situations that we so rarely get, this mix of Cup classes and GT3s on the international stage. Liqui Team Extler's Felix Hirschiger with the overall race win. Ignacio Zanon making a great debut in the GT Winter Series. First time we've seen him. It's the first time in several years that we've seen Vincenzo Sospiri racing as well, so they'll be pleased with second overall and a top nod in the GT3 class. And Kenneth Heyer with that podium, very well deserved, and of course good points on the board in their quest to once again win the GT3 championship in the 2026 GT Winter Series season. Some drivers will come out of that race with thoughts, not all of them most charitable, but I think everyone in that top three will be satisfied with their outing, and I think Felix Hirschiger will be holding a wry smile on his face, because going up against those GT3s and besting them must have been quite an experience. The Ferrari Challenge Europe Trofeo Pirelli champion from last year, 2024, he was the Porsche Sports Cup Swiss GT3 Cup class champion. We know exactly what he's capable of. It was very exciting to see his name pop up as a last-minute addition to the entry list, but yeah, no, quite special to witness that drive, and we'll see how he does against some of the pro drivers, some of the quicker elements of the respective lineups on Sunday. Of course, Sunday looking likely to present some different conditions as well. We're expecting a wee bit of precipitation overnight, and it may not relent during the day either, so the conditions might be a little bit different for the races 2 and 3 on Sunday. You can see there that Izzy is down there, ready to swoop in and collar Felix as soon as he's finished his debrief there with his Liqui Team Extler colleagues. And I'm sure that's going to be a happy man down there on the grid. His fastest lap of the race, incidentally, on the final lap, a 1:39.505, and that is some hustling around this circuit. We can now hear from our race winner. He is with Izzy Browning.
He is indeed, and for somebody who didn't know he was driving until
hopefully we can go back down to Felix Hirsiger in a moment. It looks like we've briefly lost connection there with the roving camera down in the pit lane, but hopefully we'll be able to rejoin Izzy and Felix Hirsiger in a moment. Obviously we told that story that Felix was on the plane yesterday morning to come racing in the GT Winter Series, and we'll look forward to hearing his perspective on that, the POV from the driver who is now our race winner. It's all been a bit of a surprise for Felix Hirsiger. I think less than 48 hours ago, certainly, he was on a sofa somewhere, not expecting to be driving a race car. Yeah, Liqui Team Enxler with mixed fortunes in that race, of course. Jonas Karklis, the sister car, the GT3 Lamborghini, having some dramas. Let's take a look back then at some highlights of the first race of the weekend in the GT Winter Series. So the race got underway in 2x2 formation with the rolling start, and Felix Hirsiger using the power of the Ferrari 296 Challenge car to streak into an early lead. Ignazio Zanon would be looking to use the downforce of the GT3 Lamborghini to close in. Dexter Muller, unfortunately, losing traction there into the first corner, just asking too much of the rear axle on a damp patch, and that sent him into a spin. Meanwhile, Lucas Azzato and Alessia Raffini, they made contact at turn 2. That led to our first safety car of the race. When we did get back to action, Felix Hirsiger did a great job managing it and immediately built his gap again. Jonas Karklis, brave on the brakes on a damp patch on the inside of turn 1, but unfortunately lost the rear and had to work his way up from the back of the field. There was some good racing between Severin Mazur and Petar Matic, which Mazur got the best of. Unfortunately, his car would not stay straight and true for that much longer. Jonas Karklis was working his way through the field, and then there was a drama as Igor Klaya losing control coming out of the first corner. A heavy hit to the Armco barrier for the Porsche driver. And as we went to safety car conditions, this was the moment that Severin Mazur found himself parting with his right rear tyre. Very bizarre to see a tyre go off in that fashion. That would cause a lengthy safety car, all of that drama, but we did go back to racing with 2 laps to go. Jonas Karklis immediately got himself to the inside of Dexter Muller to move back into the overall top 5. Then, though, he would go for 4th place at the expense of Simon Orange and drift way, way out wide at the final turn, trying to ask too much of a slippery surface on the outside of the corner, and fell back. Alfredo Hernandez in a spin that would ultimately put him to the rear of those who finished on the lead lap. At the front of the finishers, though, it was Felix Hirsiger. A commanding drive from the Liqui Team Enxler driver, beating out all of the GT3s on a twisty circuit. Not easy to do in a cup car. So then, Felix Hirsiger winning by 3.5 seconds over Ignazio Zanon. Kenneth Heyer in 3rd place overall and 2nd among the GT3s behind Zanon. Simon Orange in 4th position, ahead of Dexter Muller in 5th place. Jonas Karklis in P6. Petar Matic in 7th position, the number 32 Autosport Racing Lamborghini. In 8th place, Przemysław Biankowski in the PTT Racing Team Mercedes. Alexei Kikareshko in 9th position, the Cup 2 class winner, ahead of Joseph Dean. Welcome to the GT Winter Series, Joseph Dean. With a top 10 finish. Alfredo Hernandez in 11th place, ultimately recovering. Lucas Azzato, despite being in the gravel earlier on, finishing in 12th. Andre Fernandez joins the race late and takes 13th place ahead of the non-finishers Severin Mazur, Igor Klaya and Alessia Raffini. Well, a dramatic race here in the GT Winter Series, and a rather beautiful evening has blossomed for what has been a difficult weekend, or a difficult Saturday here in the Winter Series, with a lot of wet conditions greeting the Formula drivers. It's gradually dried out since then, but certainly we started off with slippery conditions, and everyone has had to contend with limited grip since then, even if we have been able to lean on the slicks for this GT Winter Series race. Certainly some great drives in these tricky conditions, and I think everyone is now tentatively glancing up at what Sunday is going to do. The weather radars have told some pretty soggy stories in regards to Sunday's weather so far, and we wait with bated breath to open the curtains in the morning and see what we're going to be offered. But no matter what, we will do everything we can to bring you a fabulous show on track and off track on Sunday as the Winter Series rolls on here at the legendary Circuito Estoril. If you are just joining us, the racing action has concluded for today, but of course tomorrow we will be back bright and early with a full program of racing with the GTs, the GT4s and the Formula classes as well. It's going to be a thriller in, hopefully, conditions just like this. As we say, it's blossomed into quite a nice evening. We're just hoping that we do get to see the sun here at the Cascais region of Portugal when we wake up in the morning, because the radars are telling us a little bit of an interesting story. Of course, teams like Sendom Racing Team, they will be keen to get their car sorted. I'm interested to see actually whether they hit the button to bring the GT3 Evo 2 that they have in the garage out, or whether they do stick with the Evo 1 spec car. That would be a really interesting little tale that we'll keep our eyes pressed on. But we look forward to seeing how that one pans out a little bit later in the Sunday broadcast, and hopefully the Evo 1 car that they've been wanting to use this weekend does indeed continue to race with us. Either way, they've got a spare, so they'll be on the grid on Sunday. Severin Mazur, who of course is a returnee, albeit with a new team, that Sendom Racing Team outfit, and we look forward to seeing him on the grid. So, Ignacio Zanon, of course, will be claiming the top nod in the GT3 class for VSR. They have won their class previously in the Winter Series in the Cup 4 class for Lamborghini Super Trofeo cars. In fact, no, it was the GTX class back then. It was the 22-23 GT Winter Series season where we previously saw VSR running a Super Trofeo spec Lamborghini before the Cup 4 class was established specifically for it. And yes, well, that is the first time we've seen the team running a GT3 spec car, and they've ticked a box. They've got a win at the first attempt, which certainly will satisfy Vincenzo Spiri and co. SR Motorsport by Schnitzelalm, of course, will be installing Jamo Hartling into their car for Sunday's second race of the weekend, the second of the 30-minute sprints, and he will be very keen to make a statement against drivers like Mattia Michelotto, who will be in that number 66 VSR Lamborghini next time out. Michelotto, a driver with quite the history in Lamborghini GT3 cars, 2021 Lamborghini Super Trofeo World Final winner, an Italian GT champion back in 2019, and indeed, of course, the reigning Pro-Am champion in the Italian GT Sprint division. And again, the more of these drivers like himself, like Marcus Clutton, the more of them in the rear view mirror, the more of a statement you're making in the GT Winter Series to say, get me in something fast in the summertime and I will continue to win races and championships. And that's certainly going to be the mission statement for Jamo and indeed for Kenneth Heyer, whose focus at this stage of his career really is more on developing drivers like Jamo Hartling. He's actually been trying to steer that career from the co-driving position and doing a great job of it as well. Certainly a lot of highly talented youngsters down there at SR Motorsport by Schnitzelalm. So then, Dexter Muller will be another one to watch, I think, on Sunday. Dexter in the CBRX by SPS entry, of course, a regular in International GT Open, typically in the Pro-Am division, so he has a pro co-driver, but here he is racing solo, and I think he quite enjoys it as well, getting the opportunity to stand on his own 2 feet, but equally I think he'll be quite happy when he has a second driver to lean back on once again. Okay, I understand that we have our drivers in position down on the podium, so let's go there now to Andy McEwen.
Thank you, Adam. Yes, we are ready to go then with our Cup 4 podium first for our first GT Winter Series race of the weekend. Our Cup 4 winner, Petar Matic. Congratulations, Petar, onto the top step of the podium, the Autosport Racing Lamborghini driver who had an eventful race. He had a couple of moments in the tricky conditions, but managed to get the win and receives the trophy from Florencio from Pirelli. He'll pose for the photos now, and then we'll try and have a quick chat with our Cup 4 winner. It was a bit of a race of attrition. Petar, congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, can we have a chat? Is that okay?
Yeah.
He's eager to run away from me. Tough race.
Competition was very strong, in my class especially. It was only 2 of us and 1 crashed.
But tricky conditions though, and you handled them well.
Very tricky condition. Yeah, it was unpredictable because, you know, there was some part of the track where was grip quite good, and also wet part of the track. But I enjoyed, you know, it was amazing race, yeah.
Excellent, congratulations on the win then. Petar Matic gets the win in Cup 4. We'll move on next to Cup 2, where we welcome our class winner, Alexei Kikireshko. Well done, Alexei, onto the top step again. We saw a lot of Alexei in Portimao last time out on the podium, and he makes a return to the top step here at Estoril, the PT Sports, by Up to Race driver, sporting it's an interesting way to wear the Pirelli winner's cap. Just pose for the photos, Alexei, and I think everyone's quite keen to get off and start their evening celebrations, but he will pose for the photos in a very uncomfortable looking position, but he's got a smile on his face, and that's the main thing. Alexei, congratulations on the win. Difficult conditions out there, slick tyres, damp track. How did you find it?
I was just careful, that's all. But everything was okay, like in rally.
Well, yes, you have rallying experience. Does that help in these conditions?
Yes, of course.
Excellent stuff. Well, you'll be hoping for more rain tomorrow then. Yes. Congratulations, Alexei, on the class win in Cup 2. And we'll now move on to Cup 1, which saw, of course, our overall race winner, a Cup 1 driver in race number 1 of the weekend. Third position then, we'll start with first for Cup 1, third place, Lucas Azato. The second step of the podium then for AF Corsa's Joseph Dean. Well done, Joseph. Second step of the podium for him, but it's an outright race win and a win in Cup 1 as well for the Liqui Team Engsler car of Felix Hirstiger. Well done, Felix. A big smile, a big wave to the crowd down below, and he climbs onto the top step of the podium. Handshakes with Lucas and Joseph. A dominant performance in class, but also a pretty convincing outright race victory as well for Felix Hirstiger. And in a moment, we'll have a chance to catch up with him as well. Trophies first handed out, not only by Florencio from Pirelli, but by Marcus and Stefan from GEDLICH Racing as well. And handshakes with our top 3. A fabulous performance that from Felix Hirstiger. And he'll be looking to try and continue winning ways again in tomorrow's 2 races. We could have even wetter conditions on Sunday, we've been told, and who knows whether that will play into their hands or not. So, photos, I think, just about done. Let's have a chat with Felix then. We weren't able to talk to him downstairs. Felix, come down here. You're a little bit taller than me. Still quite a bit taller than me. Fantastic victory, overall win as well, in tricky conditions, but you and the car seem to be working well together.
Yeah, I mean, I love the 296 challenge. It's been a very, very good car to me, and it's very capable. That's what we've shown today. Team did a perfect job in setting it up. It was all good. My first few laps in the dry this morning in qualifying here. So very happy about that. And thanks to my partner Neupak as well for getting me here and supporting this all.
It was all very last minute, wasn't it? Do you find it difficult to get into the right mindset? Clearly not, because the results are there straight away.
No, it's I've been getting used to it. And Luca, the team boss, always tells me that this is motorsport. so I have to deal with it. Yeah.
Well, congratulations then. Felix Hirziger, our overall and Cup 1 race winner, and he will be a very, very happy man here after day 1 at Estoril. One more podium to do. It is the GT3 class, and fantastic scraps in the GT3 category throughout that race, and our top 3 drivers were very much in the middle of those battles. We'll start then with our third place GT3 driver, Simon Orange. Well done, Simon. Third step of the podium, and another fighting drive from the Orange Racing by JMH driver. Second position in GT3, Kenneth Heyer. Kenneth with a podium and making up a little bit for what was a troubling weekend, I think, at Portimao last time out, with a second place finish in class. It is, though, a win on debut in the GT Winter Series for Ignacio Zenon. Well done, Ignacio, on to the top step of the podium, and the VRS driver with a really, really strong performance, flawless performance really as far as the GT3 category was concerned. He had the pace advantage in that race, did his best to go after Felix Hirziger, but in the end had to settle for second place overall, but a class win, and he will be very, very pleased with that. So, Ignacio Zenon, Kenneth Heyer and Simon Orange will again pose for the photos, and I'm very keen to have a chat with Ignacio, who I haven't spoken to for a few years. Ignacio, pop down here so we can have a little talk.
This is Italian.
The last time we spoke, you were racing a Ginetta, I think, around Donington Park. This is a bit of a step up, isn't it? How are you finding it?
Yeah, you have very good memory there. It's been a couple of years back, but finding it very well. You know, the Ginetta forms you well, and your basics on driving, and then you can bring it on to, first I did Super Trofeo and now GT3, so finding myself quite well.
It's tough competition out there, and of course you're racing against cars in different classes, and the Ferrari Challenge car has its advantages. I know your main focus is to win in GT3, but off the restart there, it looked like you had ideas of going for the overall win.
Yeah, 100%. We wanted the overall win. You know, it's a shame we had 2 safety cars that we couldn't really push and have a good fight. But in these conditions, the horsepower helps, you know, in tricky conditions. So they had the advantage, but you never know for tomorrow and the third race.
Excellent stuff. Good to see you again. Congratulations, Ignacio Zenon, then our winner in the GT3 category here at Portimao. And he gets a big cheer from the crowd down below. Thank you, Ignacio. And he will be looking for more silverware tomorrow. So that concludes then our opening day of action here at Estoril. But we've got a busy Sunday coming your way. 6 races tomorrow. And of course, that will include the pit stop races for both GT Winter Series and GT4 Winter Series, with a sprint race in the morning and 2 more Formula Winter Series races, hopefully with a few more laps of green flag action. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We'll see you again tomorrow at Estoril.
We are racing in the Formula Winter Series for the second weekend. 1.3 seconds it does get a mighty run outside of the final corner.